Call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to the monthly meeting of the City of Des Moines Zoning Board of Adjustment. This board has power under Iowa law and the zoning ordinance of the City of Des Moines to hear requests for variances and exceptions from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, conditional use permits, and appeals from the decision of the staff and the administration of the zoning ordinance, and to make decisions in such matters. This is an open and informal meeting and is currently being recorded. The board members have received a copy of the agenda, staff report, and recommendations. Copies of these are available on the trays on my far left here. We should have 5 members here at the board meeting. We have 2 that will be absent. I'll introduce the members that are here. On my left, going to be Mel Pins. Next to him is Linda Westergaard. On my far right will be Brooke Rosenberg. Next to him will be Sherry Mortiz. My name's Bill Gray. Representing City Legal on my left is Michael Kelly. Representing City Staff, we have Bert Dross, City Planner, Eric Lundy, City Planner, and Sue Ann Donovan way in the back, the Zoning Enforcement Officer. The board is required to base its decision in each case upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the applicant. The law applicable to each case is identified in the written staff report. If the facts as determined by the board demonstrate that the criteria established by law for granting the relief have been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the relief. All speakers are requested to focus their comments upon those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law have been satisfied. Each appeal will be announced in order, and the staff will present a brief explanation of the appeal. Any written comments received by the staff prior to the hearing will be distributed to the board or otherwise identified. All speakers are requested to speak from the podium over here on my right and to begin their presentation by giving both their name and address. The applicant or representative of the applicant is allowed to speak first and will be allowed 10 minutes to present their appeal. Anyone else present in support of the appeal will then be allowed 5 minutes each to present his or her comments. Anyone present in opposition to the appeal will then be allowed 5 minutes each to present his or her comments. The applicant then will be allowed 3 minutes for rebuttal or other closing comments. The meeting will then be closed to public comment, and the board will deliberate the request and make a decision. If your appeal is approved, we ask that you wait until tomorrow to go to the Permit and Development Center to apply for any building permits. Items that are listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the board requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and separately considered under the public hearing agenda. The decisions of this board can only be appealed to the Polk County District Court. If you believe you have been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the district court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the City Council to change those regulations. All material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation will become a permanent part of the record and will not be returned. If you have cell phones on there, we ask that you either put them on vibrate or shut them off because they tend to be very disruptive to the process here. Looking at the agenda, I don't think we'll need to, but if we last into the 3 or 3:30 time frame, we'll be taking a short 5 or 10 minute break. As I mentioned, we have consent items and we have some requests for some continuances. So first, you want to go through the continuances, Bert?
Sure. Item number 9, I believe, the Smokin' Joe's business at 2800 East University. They have asked for a continuance. The guy who is going to be giving the presentation on their behalf today had a family emergency come up. He couldn't be here today. So they did just ask for a continuance a few minutes ago. So.
Okay. And is there somebody here representing item 9? Could you come up here and at least give the request? Also, is there anybody here present that's here in opposition to item 9? And we'll get a chance to hear you too.
Tony Grip, 5405 West 11th Street, Davenport, Iowa. I'm here on behalf of Smokin' Joe's. They just like to request a continuance on the matter.
And as part of the process, we're going to, because some of the people might not be able to attend the next meeting, so we're going to let anybody that's here in opposition, if they wish to speak, can come on up and we'll hear what they have to say.
Do that right now?
Yeah, let's do it now. So if you're here to speak in opposition, pardon?
August 28th.
28th? August 28th. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Do you want to speak now? Okay.
Our Ron Donaldson, 4143 Knob Hill, Valley High Manor neighborhood that starts at East 30th Street. I would like to know before August 28th why there's no mention anywhere about the Last Stop liquor store that is directly across University.
I was going to address that.
Please do.
We'll find out here shortly. You want to talk on that, Bert?
Yeah, when the notices went out, we did leave that off. One of the criteria for a liquor store is that they have to be at least a fourth mile from any gas station or other liquor store selling alcoholic liquor. So they already needed the variance to that separation distance requirement. So it wouldn't have required new notices, which is why we didn't send them out. But in addition to being too close to the Quick Trip, they are too close to the Last Stop beverage shop, which is within 90 feet of the site. So
Okay.
that is noted.
That satisfy you? Oh,
There's also no mention.
I like people being brutally honest.
There's also no mention in staff recommendations.
Okay. We can take care of that. Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition that wants to do it today as opposed to August 28th? Okay. We have a request for a continuance to the August 28th meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue this item to the next regularly scheduled meeting for August 28th.
Is there a second?
A second.
Been moved and seconded. Now, we're in on a continuance, Mike. Does it take 4 votes or just
Does not take 4 votes, just majority.
majority? Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue to the August 28th meeting. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 3-1. So we'll see you all August 28th. Next request?
And the other request for continuance is item number 13, an appeal of the zoning enforcement officer's determination at 315 Southwest 14th Street. They have also asked for a continuance so they could have additional time to gather their information and their evidence.
Okay. Are they here present or anybody here to represent item 13? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition to item 13? Okay, since this is a request and they're not here, I'll entertain a motion to continue this to the August, they want the August 28th meeting or?
Yeah, August 28th.
Okay, August 28th meeting.
I'll make a motion for the continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
There's a
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Motion carries 4-0. So we'll have that for the August 28th meeting.
And then while I'm up here, I'd also mention we had 2 withdrawals from the agenda. Item number 8, which was a request for a new come and go gas station at 1300 Keogh Way for the sale of beer and wine. They did withdraw their request for the variance.
Okay.
And then item number 12 is a proposed cell tower replacement at 3764 Hubble Avenue. That withdrew as well, so the board will not be considering those 2 items today.
Okay, if you're here to just talk about items 12 and 8, they have been withdrawn, so we're not going to be hearing. So you want to see and watch your city at work, you're welcome to stay. Otherwise, you can probably go now.
Hey, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just for clarification, maybe for the audience's benefit, if somebody withdraws, would they be able to refile in X amount of time, and would there be a cost to do that?
Yeah, if they do want to be considered on a future agenda, they have to submit a new application with a whole new application fee as well.
Do they have to wait a certain length of time or
No,
anything?
if
Okay.
it was denied, they would have to wait at least a year. But-
Okay, but basically the clock would start over. They'd have to pay a new filing fee and
Right.
and start over. Okay.
And regarding number 8, the come and go, I did learn this morning that they have applied to rezone that site to PUD, which would put the decision to sell beer or wine in the hands of the Plan and Zoning Commission as part of the PUD. So I think the P&Z will be holding their public hearing on August 15th on that. So.
Okay. And just to clarify, they can present the exact same appeal the next month if they wanted to.
They could,
Okay.
right.
Yeah, right. They have to refile, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then we have item 11, Bert, that you feel could be moved to consent.
And item number 11 is a request for a new church structure at 2145 East Army Post Road. They need two appeals. One, a special permit to allow the church steeple to exceed 35 feet in height. And then the second is for an exception of 15 feet less than the minimum required 30-foot front yard setback. Staff's recommended support. We've only gotten positive feedback on this, so we feel that it could be moved to the consent agenda if the board is comfortable with that.
Is there anybody out here that's here to speak against item 11? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to,
I've just got one question, Bert. They would wind up with basically a 15-foot front yard, but
Right.
is there also a pretty wide right-of-way there as
The
well?
East Army Post right-of-way is really wide there, so
Sure.
it would be about 50 feet back from the edge
Okay.
of the pavement, so.
And they'd have a full landscaping plan for that green space
right.
in the front of the parking lot?
I'd also point out, if the site were zoned commercially, they would only have a 5-foot setback requirement, where this
Okay.
is zoned residential, so they need the 30-foot, so.
Okay. All right, then I'd make a motion to move to consent
okay, do I hear
for
a
item
second?
11.
Second that motion.
All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Motion carries 5-0. And that's it for the changes, Bert?
Well, then, item number 2,
Oh, yeah.
hopefully everybody can follow this. All right. Item number 2 is a appeal for a large garage. Staff's recommended the condition that they use or overlap siding on the garage, and the applicant's wanting to use sheet metal siding, so it needs to be discussed briefly. So
Okay.
take item number 2 off the consent agenda.
And I trust you maybe discuss that with the applicant, and they don't want to do that necessarily? Okay, all right.
Well, let's move item 2 to the public hearing. Do we need to vote on that, Mike, or we just do it? Okay, good. Okay, with item 2 moving to the public hearing agenda, that leaves item 1, an exception at 2420 40th Street. Item 3, a variance and exception at 3943 Lower Beaver Road. Item 4, a special permit at 3915 Fleur Drive. And item 11, special permit and exception in the vicinity of 2145 East Army Post Road. Is anybody here to speak against any of those items that I just named off? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the exceptions, variances, and special permits requested in items 1, 3, 4, and 11,
Okay,
subject to the staff recommendations as presented.
so here's a second.
I'll second that motion.
Then moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Motion carries 5-0. If you're here, those items have been approved. You're welcome to sit around and watch your city at work, or go out and enjoy the nice weather. Yes?
So, item number 3 has been approved then?
Yes, it has.
Okay, so we're pretty good.
Well, unless you really like to see your city at work, I'd enjoy the outside if I were you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, that leads us up to item 2. This is an exception at 2810 Sheridan Avenue.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, item number 2 is for the 30-foot by 50-foot detached garage. So it would be 1,500 square feet in area, which is 500 square feet over the allowed 1,000 square feet of area permitted for a garage. It'd be a 30-foot wide by 50-foot deep accessory building. It would be located just to the south or behind where the existing garage is. The applicant's proposing metal roof and metal siding. Staff is okay with the metal roof. We just feel that given the visibility from Sheridan Avenue and from the adjoining properties, we felt that to keep the garage more in character with the residential neighborhood, that it should have overlap siding. So we recommended approval just with that as one of the conditions. So, and we did not get any consent cards back. So, were there any questions?
Is there any metal siding anywhere in that neighborhood right now?
There might be. We didn't look too hard, but from what we could see, we didn't see any in the immediate area.
And would this metal siding be what I would call vertical Okay,
We'll get to you.
Yeah, we'll give him a chance in a minute. To your knowledge?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Now your turn. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Hi, I'm Jeff Light with LCI Buildings. It's one of our buildings.
Okay.
The owner, Pat Derry's right here.
And I need your address, too.
What's that? 2810 my address
Yeah.
is 1406 North Walnut, Colfax.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. As far as series lap siding, we put up our buildings all over town. We do run the metal siding horizontal, so it appears to be more of a lap or horizontal siding. We built them last year on East Colfax. We've got them on East 23rd and East 23rd and Maple. And there's numerous other ones, and we've always been approved for them. Like I said, we try to make them residential friendly. It's a building that lasts a long time. There's no need to paint it. There won't be a spot where 10 years from now the lap siding's starting to rot off the building, which if you drive around enough on the east side, you'll see. I mean, I'm from the east side, so I have the right to talk about the east side. But, as far as the upkeep stuff, it's a 40-year paint system.
Okay.
So the building 15, 20 years from now will still look the same. And with the design of the frame, which I've seen, he had a picture of the framework. That's the way it works so we can span the 5-foot distance in the framing, which you couldn't do with the lap siding or plywood or something like that. But I guess that's our variance. Of course, we're the building company, but Mr. Deary's here too. If you'd like him to come up.
So how often is there a seam on your panels then if you're laying them horizontal?
There won't be any seams.
There's not.
No, the panels
There's not.
come 30 feet long. We can do up to 50 feet
Okay,
long.
all right.
So there's no laps.
And then do you have exposed fasteners where it meets your
Yes.
your vertical trusses?
Yep.
Okay,
But they're not much more noticeable than nails in
Right.
lap siding.
okay. There going to be windows in this?
No.
Okay,
It can have windows put in it, but yeah, there's no windows, just for security type. There's a standard man door in it and a
Sure.
overhead door.
okay.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Is vertical siding an option for horizontal
Well,
siding an option? Is it,
not with our style of building. We'd have to put a lot more frame members in it, which would run the cost way up. I mean, it's a very economical building.
so it's kind of like a prefab building?
It is exactly a pre-engineered steel building, like you see a big warehouse,
Like a mortar
except for,
almost.
no, not a pole barn, no. Well, these are like pre-engineered warehouses, except for everything's just done on a real small scale. And we use a 9-inch center panel, which gives it the appearance of a lap siding from a distance. If you walk up, I mean, you can obviously tell it's a steel panel, but from a distance, it looks like a horizontal lap siding.
And have you talked to the neighbors about this? I mean, I noticed there weren't any objections.
No, no. And like I said, we do have them sitting all around Des Moines, so I mean, this isn't a first we've been putting them up for 20 years.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Right, you bet. Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Any last questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll close the public portion and go to board decision. I'm sorry.
If it truly is a 9-inch wide siding, exposed sheets that kind of look like overlap siding, that might meet our intent. I guess we're just wanting to be sure it doesn't look like galvanized steel nailed to the side of the garage.
So if this comes up again, you guys have a better feel for it now?
Yeah, it would have been good to have like a picture or an example of what it looked
Can you show that engineered drawing again? I don't know if that, since we've had our discussion, if that gives a little more, doesn't really give any detail on the siding there, does it?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for staff then?
I can't tell.
Thanks, Bert. Close the public portion, go to board decision.
To the structural members. Well, Mr. Chair, there wasn't a lot of discussion about this, but this is a pretty deep lot. It's set pretty far back. If this was near the front where you could see it a little better from the street, I might have a little bit more concern. But it's my understanding this is going to be horizontal siding. So, and I understand what staff's trying to do, give them credit for that. But in this case, and it sounds like Bert's maybe to a certain degree understands as well, I don't think it'd be a big deal.
No.
Doesn't appear that anybody is too concerned about it. Should be an improvement to the property all the way around.
Oh, I think so too, yeah. Any other thoughts? Right, entertain a motion.
All right, I'd make a motion to approve the exception for item number 2, so long as the siding is horizontal in nature. Is that okay?
So you're modifying condition 2? Should be constructed?
Yes,
with-
yeah.
Metal?
It shall be constructed with horizontal siding.
Would you rather say metal or,
I think horizontal would work.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't, it might be better if it's the normal lap siding if they choose to do that in the end. I don't want to rope them into metal, but I think it will be metal.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Those, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Now, item,
They still have to get their building permits and all, right?
that's right, don't go right now because I got caught on that. Item 5, this item was continued from the June 26th meeting. It's a use variance, special permit, and variance in the vicinity of 2425 Euclid.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe you continued this item from last hearing because the appellant wasn't present. I believe the appellant is present today and can speak. And because of the short board or whatever you want to call it, you're not short people, but the number of
Me too.
members of the board is
We
short
take
today.
offense to that.
I think that the appellant is going to ask for continuance,
Oh.
but I'll let them make their request.
Can't lease 4026 Beaver Avenue, Des Moines. We have decided to go ahead and go with this. We want to get our approval and tell you what we've got here, so I appreciate that. We just decided to make that change here. I think we're comfortable with you folks, so. What we've got over there, I want to,
Before you go,
Yeah, if you're not going to request a continuance, I need to give my staff.
yeah,
okay.
because I wasn't here last month and I want to find out a little bit of background
Yeah,
here.
but he understands he still needs 4 affirmative votes at a minimum for.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
all right.
One of the things, I guess, and I know that, and Sue might have some comments as well, is how we're interpreting what is storage, what is parking. One of the questions the board had asked on this was the ability to meet that standard. And in staff's review of it, we did believe that the 5-foot setback could be met even inside the fence area. So from that standpoint, we were still recommending not granting or having the condition that they meet that provision, and that would also be a site plan provision that would come later during the site plan process. But we are still recommending not approving a variance to allow storage on an unpaved surface. So just so you know, something like asphalt millings would not be a problem. That could be a surface that we allow storage on. So, and I don't know if Sue wants to add to that or, okay. Is there any other questions? Do you want me to refresh your memory on anything? I know Bill wasn't here.
Yeah, but
okay.
I read through it, so.
Yes. What is the reason for your not wanting to do this again? Can you refresh my memory at all on that?
Well, this requires an M1 zoning to allow outdoor storage. And basically, I think like boats, RVs, that type of thing, that actually requires M1 zoning. They sought the M1 zoning. That was denied. And so that gave them the ability to come in and request the use variance in front of the board. We're not opposed to the use variance. We are just not in favor of allowing the variance which would allow the storage of off-street parking and storage on an unpaved type surface.
So it's all down to the unpaid?
Right,
unpaved
like a
surface.
gravelled surface or a dirt or grass condition would not be something we would want to see storage occurring on. And so we would recommend denial of that provision or request for variance. But we are in favor of the request for variance and the special permit for the barbed wire, which I know was a concern expressed at the last hearing.
And that was going to be somewhat hidden from sight with the way it was going to be.
Yes, we were, we were basing that on, the fact that the provision already requires you to not allow it to deflect outside of the property. So they would have to ensure that it was within their property. So we weren't concerned. We believed that there was a unique, that they had demonstrated a type of use that had a unique circumstance which warranted a higher level of security. I think they can do something to keep that from appearing like a prison, or I think they can do things to satisfy those neighbors' concerns and still have the security of it. The other thing is parking can occur within if you look at our recommended condition number 4 on page 19, parking could occur. They're required they're going to have some required parking. That can occur within that 25-foot setback, but what we don't want them to do is store boats up against that setback or store RVs long-term. But to have their actual off-street parking within that 25 is okay, but they do need to meet that minimum 5, and they didn't actually request a variance for that. So I know that there was some concern that it had been paved up to that point. What I wonder is if the fence actually was pulled back from the property line. I don't know without a site plan or a survey to know that. Anyway, I was looking for wanted to give you a sense of where it was at. This actually was submitted by the appellant with the application, and it's essentially a copy of the original lumberyard site plan, and shows the dimensions, so you can have a feel for the dimensions of the buildings. The area that's really in question here, they're actually showing that they would meet that 5 foot with some landscape strip here. Now, maybe they have some different ideas and they would need to indicate those to you today, but we would certainly enforce that unless they came with another appeal for that.
Question. On that picture, if you could put it back.
Yes.
Where from the street is any of these parked vehicles in the line of sight?
Right now, and some of it might be if they put an opaque fence, it wouldn't necessarily be a line of sight at all, but RVs and things are tall. So one of the reasons, even if you store with fencing, if you put them in that front yard setback, they would have the potential to project up above the fence. But the current condition was that this was an open fence that you could see into the site. So the area that's really critical from that standpoint is really just this area right here. Other than that, most of this is the area where they would probably store outdoors. They could certainly put millings and things to meet our requirement for that provision. I just don't see why there's any real hardship that would prevent them from making that level of investment to make this use work on the site. I'm trying to find the overhead map here. I don't know.
I'd like to see that.
I didn't see it in the file, so. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
There, yeah, excellent.
I have to zoom in on it here. So this is the vehicle display lot down here. So their property and site begins just north of that. There's actually some cross access there. The main gate is right here where my end of my pen is showing, and they come into the site there. This area is an open gate. Now, I know since the time I've made a site visit, I think there's probably been some modifications that the appellant would want to speak to as well. Because I know Brooke had indicated if it's screened, But again, we would still want them to stay out of this 25-foot setback with any of the actual storage function. Parking is okay within 5 feet.
Eric, I have a question. So the real concern is the northwest corner there. That's the open corner. Is that correct?
The northwest corner is actually very concealed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean south. South.
Yeah, the
That
southwest
corner.
corner here, it's exposed to the intersection, it's exposed to these neighbors.
Okay.
So yes, that's
what
more
is
of a
the
concern.
height requirement then for fencing or an enclosure there?
Actually, the fencing that's open can be up to 6 feet in the front yard setback. So they can have 6 feet chain link
Okay.
or other type of open fencing material within the front yard setback. The buildings themselves are already legal nonconforming, so any building that's up against the property line, for example, and any existing fence material that's against the property line that's taller than that, that's opaque, is also okay, and they can repair that over time. They can't completely replace it, swap it out, then they would have to come back for a variance for that provision too.
Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Eric. Now,
Yes.
applicant or representative, yeah.
Okay, Kent Lease, 4026 Beaver Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa. I want to give you a little bit of background before we get into this and why we purchased this. We have been doing, we've been buying rental properties and managing those for about 20 years now, and with this site, it allows us to consolidate our storage and to be more efficient with everything and kind of work out of one place instead of several garages and things like that. So that was the motivation to buy this. A little bit of background about our rental business and kind of what we represent and what we try to do. This year so far, out of 21 of our city inspections for a rental certificate, we had an opportunity to get extended certificates through those 21. We received an extended certificate on 14 of those, so 2/3 of ours. So I think that takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of understanding, and a lot of coordination, a lot of doing the right thing. So what we do is we try to do the right thing, and that's what we want to do here. Since we've owned this property, we have really not had any complaints from neighbors or any folks around us. The bike path is there. The people come through our frontage, our front area all the time with bikes, skateboards, and you name it, to hit the bike path. We're okay with that. I mean, we just, again, we want to be good for the neighborhood, and what we've done so far and what we plan on doing, we don't believe has a negative effect. We don't have any pollution issues per se. We don't have any real noise issues out there. Again, we've not had any complaints from anybody around us, and so we've got a sense that we're doing, at least trying to go towards the right direction here, and again, fit in with the neighborhood. We've met with the Lower Beaver neighborhood, the board members, and they've toured the site and been comfortable with what they've seen there and what we've done. When you look at this frontage area, that we think the key for the landscaping and beautification is that corner, because that corner represents not only it represents what people see from that intersection, and that's the busiest part, and that's where people are going to see most of that. It's not so much going down ML King, although we will gladly participate in any kind of a neighborhood beautification program along there, as well as on the other side of our building to the east, which is the bike path area. And honestly, our mowing in our yard area along ML King consistently looks better than the bike path area that is taken care of by Parks and Rec or the city. So comparatively, we think we're doing a good job on that. So that's the area we'd like to focus on. When we heard from Eric, and I hadn't heard that until I walked in here today, that the asphalt millings are acceptable, I'm thrilled to hear that, because we have a gentleman that works within asphalt servicing that has a little bit of our yard area, and so we think we have a accessible to those millings, and we can accommodate that kind of recommendation over time. And what I understood here a little bit ago before the meeting is that the city would recommend we could have a 5-year period to cover that whole area. I mean, there's a significant amount of gravel in the whole area, and we can start with the parking areas first versus the open common areas, and be glad to focus on whichever part needs to come first with that. So with that, we deferred last month. I appreciate you doing that. We missed it. Every meeting that I've been to has been a night meeting, and whether it's a city meeting or whether it's the neighborhood meetings, and I somehow thought it was a night meeting, but it wasn't. So thank you.
Questions, Mel?
Kent, it sounds like you've got a good thing going here. You've got support from the neighborhood. So based on what the staff's recommendation is, those 4 points, and if they're willing to allow you to use asphalt millings to come up with your kind of dustless surface,
Yep.
are you basically then kind of okay with the staff recommendation, what they've got listed here?
Well, yeah, what we have on, how can I bring him in here?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I just kind of want to preface something here.
Yep.
I don't want to get into a big detailed discussion on lots of tiny details about the site if you're generally in agreement with what they're saying here. So, and if there are some other things you're concerned about that you'd have to comply with based on what staff's recommending, that's really where I'd want to focus.
Yep, there's just a couple of slight things
Okay.
we'd like to offer or suggest. And on the landscaping, that was one. Hey, we would much rather be in front or on that corner than on the side, because that's,
Okay.
and that's our visibility too, so.
Right.
But I'll let Jerry talk about some of the other details.
Thank you for seeing us again this month. Apologize for missing last month. My name is Jerry Hope, 3819 Kingman Boulevard. I work with Kent Lease on property management. I do a lot of the city inspections, things like that, and I'm the site manager here. What I'd like to do is show a picture. Oh, I don't know how to light it up. Okay.
There we go.
This right here where I have this orange with the little flowers or brush is where I would like to put in the beautification for the front entrance. It's our front corner of our building or our parking lot, and then just to this is the gate. Right now, this line right here, that's an existing fence that we have that's a 6-foot chain link, and we are on city property. We're on the easement of the parking, okay? What I would love to do,
That was that way when we purchased.
and that's how we purchased it, what I'd like to do is this other line here is run my fence in line with my metal out to where my monument sign is right here. But there would be a little bit of concrete exposed. I'd like to leave the concrete, just set my fence back to where I'd still have the water runoff, because everything that's in yellow is gravel. Okay? And before we got with the city on doing solid surface, you know, I have 18,800 square feet of gravel, okay? That's a lot of gravel, okay? But I've got literature as far as how to have that treated and everything. But what I'd like to do is, if it would be okay, if I could set that fence back to where we're off the city property, and then do the shrubs and the beautification out on the north or the southwest corner. And if I can show you the picture, this is exactly about where it would go, is right here.
The beautification.
The beautification, okay? I have complied with the fire department. I've had them in, checked everything. I talked to the fire department and the police department. They would love for me to leave this front gate visible to where people, they can see in case there's activity, there's a fire. They ask if we could leave that gate not enclosed with vertical metal or anything. And this is the opening right here of this gate, okay?
That was a picture just pulled up and took it yesterday, so that's what it looks like.
Okay. And then I have a picture here, and this is the area where we are on the city property right now. And what we want to do is set it back in line with my outbuilding. If I offset it, what they first asked us to, I would be into one of my dock doors right there, you know, if I did green space there. I'd like to run it in line there, but we would mount it to the concrete or drill and put the post in and mount it to the concrete, but we'd like to have the concrete underneath the fence for weeds, stuff like that. At the far end of one of my buildings, clear down here, this was chain link. I had Lower Beaver Neighborhood Association down. We put metal vertical siding on that to enclose it to where nobody could see, you know, what was in there. I would be willing, if that's what you would like here, or leave it as chain link. And I guess that would be, you know, with everybody else's, what the neighborhood and everybody else would want, okay?
If we put the metal on, it would match what's that other building and continue that.
What it would be is the whole MLK side would be white vertical metal, all right? I went and got literature on treating the gravel, okay? From what I understand from this company, because my parents live on Gravel Road in Warren County, they do work for the city. I talked to them about treating the gravel that we have, and you know,
If we start the asphalt overlay or the millings, then we won't need both. Is that correct?
You know, I'll have to defer to staff what their final decision is on that, but
some other notes here. The barbed wire back here where we've already ran the metal, it turns inward, okay, at about a 22-degree angle, and it is below my metal as of now. There is no barbed wire in this area here. The barbed wire starts at the northwest corner and goes around and comes over here. The reason I love to leave the barbed wire on that north is the city has such overgrown brush from that creek. I need to keep the thieves out. We've already had a problem with that, okay? That, you know, if I could keep the barbed wire to where it's tipped inward, it'd be harder for them to climb that fence. Okay? We do light the bike path. We have lights here and here to where we do, you know, we want to give it back to the city too, the park, you know, basically. So I had outside lights that come on every night, every evening there. Okay, so we maintain that part. I don't think I've missed anything.
one question I've got is, it sounds like your intention is to have asphalt milling throughout the entire place as an ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your time frame is like you need 5 years to do that?
There's 18,000 some, and we do have a gentleman that we work with on other projects. And to be honest, right back here, he's already started putting millings in last year.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is really it's about where the parking is and not so much the common areas of just kind of driveways between buildings. So that's the first priority would be to put it where there's anything that's parked, and that would be, obviously we could do that. Like I said, that'd be the first area we focus on.
Okay. So in your mind, you have a plan?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? And I want to hear what Sue Ann's got to say too. You want to go ahead, Sue Ann?
Van Donovan, Zoning Enforcement Officer, Chair, members of the board. One thing is I'm not sure that they can maintain any asphalt on city property without going to real estate and asking for some sort of a lease agreement if they want to keep it long-term. that's something they could work out with real estate as to what they have to remove from city property.
Yeah, I wondered if that was,
That's not really something that the board can grant. It is something that staff can discuss through real estate to see if there's some way to allow that continuation of that use.
okay. Would that be more of a site plan
Yeah.
issue?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll handle it with
Okay.
them, walk them through it with the site plan.
So
and
it's nothing
see.
we'll have to delve into then. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
What they're basically asking for is 0 setback on the fence. If there's some way to get some green along there, that would be good.
Right.
Although I think the neighborhood is planning on doing some beautification with forestry on the right-of-way, so it'll soften up that side of ML King. I would kind of like to see the, everything match along ML King. They were talking about that they had on the north. If they could put it in that other section, then we'd have a nice, clean look, all matching. As far as putting all the green down in the entryway with the fence, I think that sounds like a good idea. Again, that's something they have to work out through site plan. But if you do give them a 0 lot line and they don't have to take out the 5 foot, that's where we would concentrate green space.
Okay.
As far as the asphalt millings, I have no problem with letting that go as long as it's a continuous and they do the emulsion on the gravel part. It's probably better for us if they do the driving areas first, because that's where the most disruption is when you're driving in and out instead of the parking. So it's just, yeah, I mean, it's just opposite, it's just a way of working out what's the least amount of dust being raised over the time frame until they complete it. So
Great.
those are my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Sue Ann. And I've got another question. Up in that northwest section, you're talking, it's got a 6-foot chain link fence now. You're talking about putting metal siding on it.
We already did.
On the building, but I'm talking about where
We did it on the fence.
On the
We met
north
with the
side.
neighborhood association.
okay, that's
and-
probably my next question would be. So on the southwest section, you're talking about doing it there too?
Yes.
Okay.
When the fire department and police department asked me if I'd have a fence, they like to be able to see in there in case of a fire, any disruption. I'm willing to work with whatever the association wants to go with. If it's 6-foot chain link, if it's putting the metal on there. We discussed at one time, metal.
I guess that's what I'm trying
okay.
to find out. What's
And
the,
it's whatever everybody else is comfortable with.
you're flexible to whatever the neighbors are, okay, good.
The only part that they want to open really right now
Was
is
the
that
gate.
main gate.
Okay.
Right.
I'd like to just make one comment about the dust too. We've been down there over a couple of years now, and I have to tell you, I grew up on a gravel road, and we had 3 times the amount of dust in our house than I have anywhere in the yard, let alone outside
Yes.
the yard.
Yes.
So the dust really isn't
Yeah.
a huge issue. I mean, we'll do whatever we need to do, but I just personally, it's not that dusty in there, but we'll take care of however you want us to do that.
I go up to my wife's family farm and, there is a lot of dust, but what I want you to understand is you would not believe how many people come in here and say, oh, the dust from this gravel is nothing compared to, no, it seems like nobody has a problem with the gravel dust ever coming in front of the board, but,
Right.
But
that's, I'm just, yeah, okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in support? I thought there would be.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, my name is Brian Millard, 3920 Leonard Drive. I'm going to be speaking from 2 different positions. First, I'll be speaking as the president of the Neighborhood Association. Our board was contacted about this quite a ways back, and we had a meeting, and then we went and met with Kent, toured the entire facility, inside the buildings and out, walked all around. And it's unfortunate that the city had him had to go to P&Z for to try to rezone, and then go to the city council, and had to get turned down to get here. But this is where they want to be. They want to be here.
I agree.
So we met on site. We of course decided that we didn't want the rezoning. We voted away from him and everything, and then met with him. It was unanimous, and discussed his uses and everything, and it's been an ongoing discussion. This is the old lumberyard property, and it got to be pretty bad. And here's the general location of it. That's kind of hard to see. No, that's okay. But the biggest thing we've always had a concern about is here's the property and there's the river. Now, if you notice, this is Polk County River Place right here, and they have a flood wall that's higher than where their property is. So this property is bound to get wet. Maybe not inside the buildings, but out in the lot and everything and stuff. So we feel fortunate to have somebody in there. This property sat empty for a long time. And there was discussions at the last meeting about it becoming a park or something like that. This was for sale for a long time. I even asked Angela Conley and the supervisors to buy it because we were worried that it'd become a blighted property. We did end up with somebody who's very respectable in the city and accountable, you know, managing single-family homes. And as we know, that's the biggest problem in our neighborhoods and stuff. I want Kent to take over a lot of them in our area. When the comment came up, this one you might have to zoom out on. The comment came up that that one of the apartment complexes wanted a park, and of course that should be provided by apartment complexes. But this is the MLK Greenbelt that the neighborhood developed. It is over 1/3 of a mile long. We had all the trees and scrub and everything else, and just tons of dumped stuff in there. There's 180 some hardwood overstory trees. It's grass. And the reason we developed this is to clean up the area, and also, but all these apartment complexes in this area, the kids will have a place to play. We have the ultimate park that's not called a park, and luckily the city probably won't sell it because that's a city levy there, so it won't be one that goes away.
Is that floodplain?
Pardon?
Is that floodplain?
It's not, but you know how that goes. We all saw the lines, and then we saw flood of 93 and the flood of 2008. And it's funny, the lines keep moving. This area gets wet. In fact, our neighborhood sign is right over in this area. And we set the base of the footing a foot above the intersection back on the corner. This area is going to get wet. Kent's aware of it. It's going to happen someday. Polk County River Place won't go under with their nice flood wall now and everything and stuff. So we support the idea of keeping the barbed wire if we don't see it. We don't want to hear, smell, or anything else. He's run a great operation there. The landscaping didn't make sense to us either because we are going to plant trees along there. If you've gone north of Euclid Douglas there and seen up into the neighborhood along the MLK Greenbelt and now in front of the apartments we started planting, we're just beautifying this area. The idea of putting his landscaping right here is awesome because that's what everybody sees from the intersection and coming into the neighborhood. And that's a big area. It's a huge expanse of concrete that they're going to take on. It's the only place that really makes sense. In closing, we're good with the asphalt millings, taken 5 years. Of course, it's not going to take him that long, but you always want that backup. What if their client moves out and they're going to have to look for it somewhere else? We're good with the landscaping change, and we're good with the barbed wire. I know this individual will work with city staff. If it was rezoning, it goes with the land. Well, this is going with Kent. And I understand, we have staff that will hold people accountable, but we've got a good applicant here. So I urge you all to support it. And as an individual, the neighborhood voted to support it too, the neighborhood board. But I'm here for any questions then.
Brian, the one I've got is on the southwest corner. We're still deciding whether we want to put siding or fence. What would you like to see there?
Well,
they're open either way.
Well, I understand that police and fire might want to be able to see in there. Yeah. Their gate is awesome. They had started to even put up siding on that fence until they found out it's on city property. Who would have thought? And that goes all the way back to the lumberyard days, Des Moines lumber days. So, I'm comfortable with what the board decides on this because we're going to do some landscaping along there too. Find out what the applicant does once in closing. You guys decide to. I think you guys will make a good decision. So.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you for the opportunity.
Anybody else here to speak in support? Is there anybody here to speak in opposition? I just have one more question for Kent. it seems like we've got an open area on that southwest corner. What's your preference? So we can put it in the wording.
We've already got metal for that, and we started that with not knowing that it was on city property. So I think that, to us, makes a lot of sense, because that makes that whole side uniform with the same look and the same metal and same siding. And then we don't anticipate anything that would be parked there, other than maybe pulling in the yard for, an hour or two or whatever, just to do whatever. But on a long-term basis, any of the vehicles that'll be there will be hidden by that 6-foot fence or whatever that height is deemed to be. So I think that really gets everything cleaned up, and then we've just got the front look, which is, we've seen that is not too big a deal either. So I think the continuous metal siding would be where we'd want to go.
Okay, good. Any last questions for staff?
I have a question. Part of this is a special permit for the allowed use of barbed wire.
Yes.
But the applicant said that there's already barbed wire there. So why does he need a special permit?
Because they lost the use of the property, so.
So if he wants to keep it, or maybe even replace it and upgrade it, he'd need to have a special permit to do that.
It's just something that protects them in the long term.
And can we add just in that back part? I mean, if we,
Yeah, if you want to specify that it's limited to a certain area of the site, you can do that.
It's also on our existing gate.
Yeah, on the front gate.
I think if
It's
you're
on the
gonna,
existing gate.
I think if you're going to start doing that, you're going to want a drawing that you can vote on. And so I'm a little skeptical about designing here on the fly. I hear a couple of things like opaque fences against the property line, which I think will need another appeal. Possibly the setback would need another appeal. I know that we're already asking for the most severe type of variance by granting a use that's not permitted in the district. So I'm not sure our notice is inadequate. That might be a legal question, but I'd sure feel safer if we saw something on a diagram that we would be comfortable with.
Would that be something that we vote on, or is that something that would come
Well,
on
I
the
guess if
site
you want to
plan?
give staff some discretion, if you're going to start limiting where fencing is, I think we have to have a graphic representation, or the board can do that, but I'd just say if we need a tool or something to actually be able to enforce that later.
because the way it's written now, I would think they could put barbed wire around the whole thing.
Yes, yes. And staff was comfortable with that. Well, I'm just saying, the staff was comfortable with doing that.
Right.
If the board thinks it needs to be more limited than that, then I think we need to have a more limited, we need something that depicts what you're limiting it to, or it needs to be pretty descriptive so that we can enforce.
So am I hearing you say that you'd rather that we not address it?
Not restricted, I think.
Well, we're already on record with our staff report that we're comfortable with having it around the perimeter. So if you're wanting as a board, or feel like there's a criteria here that you need to consider to limit it, they can certainly limit it within they can limit it as they've described under what we've recommended. But if you're really wanting to limit them and not allow them later on to come in and put it in other places, then we have to have something descriptive. But the board could do that.
And from the neighborhood group, I didn't hear any objections to barbed wire.
We did have testimony at the last meeting by 2 people that were opposed to the barbed wire.
Okay. What a surprise. Yeah, okay.
And I understand the barbed wire in the back, nobody sees it. But I'm just concerned about barbed wire around the whole thing.
And yeah, in terms of the way staff evaluated this, certainly the areas that are concealed on the property are the most vulnerable in terms of somebody entering the property through the fencing. Those would probably be the most effective places to put barbed wire. We just thought that the types of things that were going to be stored here, such as RVs, the tendency is if they're not protected or secured, valuable things like precious metals and their catalytic converters, that type of thing, tend to get stolen very easily.
Seen that down here.
Again, this all comes with the baggage of allowing a type of use. I mean, in an M1 area, no one would think of this being a real problem, but since this is unusual, we're allowing a use that's kind of industrial nature now in a residential area, we've got to, as a city, figure out what's reasonable to allow this to occur. And staff did think that the barbed wire was still justified, so.
You do think it is?
We did, yes.
Let me ask you this, Linda. Would you, if we brought the applicant back up and have them identify where they want barbed wire and we, to a degree, restrict it to that, would that?
I would feel comfortable.
Okay. Ken, would you mind coming up? I mean, we're kind of putting you on the spot here, but if you could put where you would like to have barbed wire. I know where you've got it already.
That's it.
Yeah.
We have no plans to add it anywhere else.
Okay.
So
But
what's there
your
is
front gate has it on, though?
just, there's 3 strands within the top of that gate.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I'm more comfortable with the barbed wire, you know, getting a commitment. I think this is a great, I just want to commend you folks. This is a great collaborative effort between business and neighborhood and community, and I think that this is a real win-win. So I'm okay with you specifying, you know, where you intend to put barbed wire.
Sheree, I got to echo that. It's great to have the legwork done ahead of time. You've already talked to the neighborhood group. You've made the concessions that need to get done. You make our job a lot easier.
No, I appreciate that. And again, we want to be here long-term and make it work for everybody, so.
Okay.
That, you can see the barbed wire, there's the strands just right above that main bar there on the gate, so that's all the barbed wire is, just, I think there's 3 bars there.
This is all of 8 foot, so the barbed wire is above the 8 foot. I mean, they'd have to do an awful, you know, I
You have
mean.
to want to get there to actually accidentally get into it.
And if they see it, you know, there, I mean, I'll be honest, I have a collector car down there, and some kids got in there and they jumped out of the loft of one of the buildings and caved the roof of my car in, okay? I mean, you know, we're trying to secure for other people to park stuff in there. And if I don't show some type of security there, you know, the chances of me having someone else put their things in there is gonna be.
I think we were comfortable with it. The neighborhood group is comfortable with it. I just want to make sure that the board members are comfortable with it, so that's good. Thank you. Any last questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to public, close the public portion, go to board decision.
Mr. Chair, I just want to maybe remind ourselves, maybe I'm making this too simple. We've really only got 2 appeals here. The
Right.
special permit for the variance of the barbed wire, and we can see how you want to lay that out. And the other one is just a variance to have a permanent paved surface, and he's willing to agree to a variance that would still keep it dustless, but give him some time to put in the asphalt millings and keep the other calcium chloride down until then. So I don't know if needs to be a bunch of discussion about where landscaping goes and this and that. I don't think we're trying to redo a site plan here. So I just want to, if everybody's on the same train of thought here, I think maybe we've been dicing this a little more than we need to.
And we've got both sides agreeing on it, so nobody's here objecting. That's
Yeah. I don't really want to try to micromanage his site plan because he has not been appealing other conditions he'd have to comply with here. So again, maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but, you know, because at the last time we had this list of 25 items, and I don't think we need to go there.
No. Okay. Thoughts? I mean, I think that, like you said, Mel, it's pretty
Unless
cut
you
and
see a
dry.
need to explain the barbed wire any differently. Okay, go for it.
Do we hear a motion?
But the staff recommendation, you want to give him time? We need to give him some time.
Yeah. and-
Is 5 years, though, I must say, I don't recall that we've given 5 years for too many things. You know, we've asked for phased approaches, maybe within 18 months, half's done, and another 18, the other half's done. That's 3 years. When we've had people move trailers or discontinue a use or eventually get a lot paved, you know, I haven't seen a 5-year stretch too often. And I'm not trying to pick on these guys,
Yeah, but, you know, 18,000 square feet, it's a chunk, you know, and you got to start making some money
Okay.
somewhere down there. But let me ask Sue Ann, is that, if we go up to 5 years, is that something that you can manage? Is that a difficulty for you?
We need to just have a microphone back there. So she's
Chair, members of the board. We can conceivably do a 5-year. We would probably put it in the site plan and say, this is the phase 1, this is phase 2, phase 3, and then go out and
Yeah,
either look through the gate or
Up to
wander
5
around.
years, but maybe with a phased approach.
Right, so-
Which we don't necessarily have to dictate.
No.
How many phases. We'll let you work that out with them.
Yeah. That way
So
we
there's some
We
progress.
get progress and we're not faced with year 4 and nothing's been
18,000 square
accomplished, and all of a
feet.
sudden there's 18,000 square feet.
Right.
Yeah, this way we can kind of monitor it too.
Okay. So, you good with the 5-year plan, Mel?
Yeah,
Okay.
everybody.
And Linda, you good with the barbed wire as described?
Yes, as described.
Okay. Let's put a motion together. Let these people start moving on.
No, I'll let you. I'm not going to do it. You can do it.
Well, I would make a motion to grant the use variance and the variance of the provision requiring outdoor storage and parking to be on a permanent paved surface, but we're going to allow them 5 years, and they can use the asphalt that we talked about.
Asphalt milling?
Asphalt millings.
And
Is that
then-
acceptable?
Yep, and the,
Barbed wire can be, the special permit for the barbed wire to be replaced or repaired, and it's where it is right now.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
And a friendly second on that would be they'd have the phased approach to installing the asphalt millings over that 5-year
Within
period.
5 years.
To be determined by staff on the site plan. Sure. What those phases are.
Are we okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay.
3, okay. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye, motion carries 5-0. We don't want to dice it anymore, folks. Let's get it moving.
That's right.
Item 6 was continued from the June 26th meeting. It's a conditional use permit, an exception at 3100 Easton Boulevard.
Thank you, Barney.
Oh, sorry, grab it. Mr. Chair, again, I don't think I'm crying wolf again this time.
Can't see.
We did get a note passed from the applicant wanting to ask for a continuance. Do you want to entertain that request first?
Wow.
What, they want a continuance?
Or they're not here.
They've passed a note that they would like to request a continuance. So,
Mr. Chair, and I always like to remind people, we can never guarantee that we'll have 7 people here. I
right,
know.
well, the last meeting, they had a 3-3 vote.
Right.
With one missing, one board member
Okay,
absent.
sure.
Staff is recommending in favor of this.
Right.
But they would also need 4 affirmative votes with just 5 people today. So that's, it's the board's discretion. I do want to point out there is a shot clock provision.
Yes.
And I did give you a little handout on that.
Yes.
As I indicated to Cherie today, I could probably give an hour-and-a-half lecture on that 2-page document I just provided you. But I do want to highlight there's the shot clock provision, and that it was most recently held up actually in May with a Supreme Court decision where the city of Arlington, Texas was basically shot down by the Supreme Court in their argument that the shot clock provision didn't apply. So essentially, in their case, we have to be very careful. Right now, it's because the board granted a continuance and they mutually agreed to a continuance. It's like a remote control putting it on pause is the way it's kind of viewed from our standpoint. If you proceed with it, then if there ends up being a denial, for example, then it moves on. It's considered disposed of. However, then they can immediately appeal in court. So we have to look at these other provisions too to make sure any action is defensible under some of those other provisions that and so we'd almost have to enter an opinion even if we had a majority in favor and it didn't it didn't reach the 4 votes, we'd have to have a basis for the denial. So,
Okay.
so from the dissenting side, that's basically.
And Eric, I think you also gave us, within that discussion, besides the kind of the shot clock timeframe, there were, Court of Appeals have upheld some things, the rationale for denials when it comes to cell phone towers. It can't just be, I don't want it in my backyard.
Correct.
Or discussions about health claims, or discussions about things where we don't have the expert testimony to make the decision because we aren't the experts. So if they say we don't have substantial coverage here, or I have problems, it's not, they are the experts for the testimony.
Right. If they're
not us.
basing it on something of that nature, they would need both the criteria of the local jurisdiction to have incorporated that as a criteria,
Right.
and they would need the expert testimony to substantiate
Okay.
that they didn't fulfill that criteria. So
Okay.
it's a pretty tall test on that kind of type of thing, I guess, if you're applying that doctrine, I guess, that's on there. So
Okay.
again, I feel a lot more comfortable agreeing to it, actually, the continuance, just from a legal
Okay.
perspective. And I don't know if Mike has any feelings one way or the other on that, but just based on past
Okay.
situations with communication tower providers.
I don't think I'm planning to be on vacation next month. How about you guys?
I'll be here.
Okay.
What, are the representative here?
Yeah, I would let them make their
Okay.
request.
Thanks. Eric?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Kurt Walter. I do represent Verizon Wireless. I am at 2897 Lake Vista Drive in Rochester, Minnesota. After discussions with staff yesterday, we decided that my higher-ups have decided that a continuance would be preferable for our end, just to get enough numbers here that a full board be better suited. Take a look at this. We hashed over a lot of things last week. We have met with the neighbors. It was a very nice meeting. I don't know if we've changed any minds at all. They suggested an artist rendering. We've got one of those now. We're just looking for more board members. And maybe we can meet with the neighborhood again, see what actually would be available for them to make this work. But at this point, we haven't gotten that far.
If you do grant August, you will be eligible, you will be ready to go on the 28th of August?
Yes.
Okay. So your request is for a continuance for right now?
That would be our request right now, yes.
Is there anybody out here that's here to speak against item? Oh, well.
Yes. There are several of the neighbors here that we met with, a couple extras.
Would there be some people that want to speak today or yeah, so we'll table that until we hear what the people have to say. So there is a request for a continuance, and if you can't make the next August 28th meeting, I welcome you to come up here and express your opinions.
Suzette Jensen, 3127 Thompson Avenue. Like many of us, I wear 2 hats today. I'm president of Northeast Neighbors, and we have voted to support the neighborhood in being against this cell tower. I understand, and I'm also a resident of the neighborhood adjacent. My house and a lot that I own are right adjacent to the church, very close. I understand their need for a continuance. I'm not so sure how my neighbors feel, but it would give us a little more time too. We've had so many people on vacation. I was out of town last month. It would get us back within the school calendar, and we'd have more time to talk about how this is moving forward. My first conversation indicated that there might be another location for this tower, and we'd certainly like some opportunity to pursue that before we come back here.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, Brooke?
Are you aware of this of this shot clock?
I was going to ask for a copy of that.
Okay, because the way I read it, it doesn't really give you much authority if you want to know the truth from a neighborhood standpoint.
I realize that.
So I think you need to make sure you read it. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in opposition?
Marty Mock, 2701 Arthur. When I was on the board here a number of years ago, we had a problem with organizations and corporations sniffing the air and seeing that they wanted to have a continuance. And there were times when this board had granted continuances for as much as 6 months because they didn't like the count on the board. We changed that back then. I hate to see it resurrecting here when they just sit there and go, oh, we better get a continuance. I think that one continuance is here. There was already been a granted continuance because there was a 3-3 vote. And they know, like anybody else, they take their chance when they come before us. There are two aspects here that I think they do not meet the criteria, even under the guidelines of the federal law. Number one is such practical difficulties cannot be overcome by any feasible alternative means other than exception. That is not the case here. I see no material has been submitted by this organization as to the possibility of locating this tower on Grandview Park in any area. They said they couldn't go east of this location because of the terrain. Well, the terrain is Grandview Park. And there are certainly any number of areas of Grandview Park that can exceed the 10-acre requirement and therefore do not require this exception. And unless they have contacted the city and negotiated with the city, I think that they've not done their due diligence in providing the material here to have this passed. Secondly, the exception is in harmony with the essential character of the neighborhood of the land in question. And that's certainly not the case here. On an area that's zoned R180, that does not meet the essential criteria of the neighborhood. It does affect values, it does affect the view, and the comment, "not in my backyard," is not an application here, because this is dealt with the essential essential character of the neighborhood. There are so many different things on the market right now that would mitigate the look of any tower. For example, I was traveling to Bahamas last month, and they were putting in cell towers down there. One of the options they've done now is they develop cell towers that look like palm trees. It's amazing how well they mesh in with the environment instead of just a stark white or stark blue tower up in the air. I first saw that, didn't know that that was even possible. I commented to the people I was driving with, "Good grief, look at that tall palm tree." Got close by and found out it was actually a telecommunications tower. I got on the internet and did some research and found out they can do the same thing with pine trees. Again, Grandview Park has a proliferation of pine trees. They could put a tower up there and would not at all hamper the essential character of the neighborhood. My firm conviction is that they don't meet the test here. They shouldn't be allowed to do it. And I don't think they should really be allowed to postpone it. It should be up there and be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Hello, my name is Brian Ruggles. I live with my wife and two 6-year-olds at 3042 Easton Boulevard. I brought a couple of pictures, if that's okay.
Yes.
I'm not so familiar with how this works.
You're right.
There's a picture of our home. We moved, I recapped this from last time, but we moved from Ankeny really with the thought that we were kind of getting away from the big city, even though we were coming to Des Moines, because we feel like we're in the country. Very much a park-like setting. We love it there. The tower would be 121 feet from our boundary, and the building would be probably 30 or 35 feet from our property line. Here's another shot. My two kids swinging out on a giant petalpa tree, probably planted about the time our house was built, which is 1900. Again, this area is definitely a historical area. It's an NFC neighborhood, which I believe tries to promote home ownership. And so I really feel like this is one of the nicer areas, at least from my view, on the whole east side. It's a great part of town. My wife and I own 3 lots. We pay $5,000 a year in taxes. Each of these, and many that are not able to be here today, also your constituents, are all tax-paying people. I'm a pastor, so I understand that a church doesn't necessarily pay property tax. There's also several lots in this neighborhood, 3 of them behind our home and a couple other potential ones that could yet be developed in the future. There are open lots that are zoned for that, and so it's unlikely that someone would want to come in and build a new home, a nice new home, with that thought that there's a cell tower right next door. Mrs. Vitalis, Peg Hoffman, Suzette Jensen are all representative neighbors right behind the church. I brought just a couple of pictures. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. This is, I believe, part of Suzette's yard, just very beautiful park-like. Here's a shot that really doesn't do justice, but Mrs. Vitalis has an absolutely gorgeous yard. Here's a view. There's a greenhouse in the back and a number of other just very beautiful. I don't know of a park in Des Moines actually that's any nicer. Not even, doesn't really even compare to what her backyard is. When we saw the map last time, most of the neighbors obviously that the notice was sent out to oppose this. 2 of the neighbors, Kevin Whittington and Gary Walden, who live directly to the south and to the east respectively, neither one of them even really understood what was going on. And I know I don't have permission to speak for them, but they both indicated definitely their opposition to it. We were told that there was no effect or potential effect on property values. I know that personally, if the tower had been there, my wife and I would not have bought where we did. I would imagine there are other people that feel the same. Many cities have actually chosen not to allow cell towers in residential neighborhoods at all. My question is, if they're not allowed in parks, they're not allowed in schools, they're supposed to be on 10 acres, why do we make these decisions? I'm sure there's a reason for it. We're asking for a 70% variance here, not just a small variance, but a 70% from 10 acres down to about 3 acres. Again, the city owns property in this area that would be larger than that 10 acres. And there have been many cases that have actually been denied due to the zoning of the local government, the local city. Mr. Vice Chair, who was the chair last meeting, actually made the comment in the meeting, and I believe it's on the record. He says, I would not want one next to my house. And yet he turned around and he voted to put him next to our home. And I say that with respect, sir. When I talked with the pastor this week, he was told up front, I believe by the Verizon representative, that, oh, don't worry about it, the neighbors will be fine with it. Well, we're not too fine with it. He also indicated that he had no awareness that if another company would come in and use the same tower, that they would actually build additional buildings or structures in addition to the proposed, I think it's 12 by 30 foot structure that's planned to be built. And then finally, I know this has kind of been laughed at, this thought. We're told that cell towers are completely safe. We were told last time that we've had cell towers for 20 years. Well, they used asbestos for years too, and a lot of people that suffered from that. We're told there's no credible evidence for any of the health risks, and yet there's a large number and growing number of developing countries and thousands of scientists and thousands of doctors that have actually come to a contrary conclusion to that. There's a lot of things that could be cited. Again, you could do months and years of research, and am I on time?
Yep.
I'm out?
One more minute.
One more minute, okay, thank you.
Wrap it up.
In 2004, there was a German study that showed that people living within 1,300 feet had 3 times the likely cancer risk. A French medical study, people within 1,000 feet had unusually high levels of extreme fatigue, memory loss, headaches, sleep disorders, depression, skin problems, hearing loss, etc. Unfortunately, in most of those studies, women and children seem to suffer more even than men for some reason. And I saw one talk about that, one guy that was very much a student of that topic. But anyway, with that said, I don't think this is a light issue. I think sometimes that we make decisions maybe based out of fear about what might happen, but I think if you're going to represent your constituents, it would just be something to consider very, very cautiously. Thank you.
Brian, let me ask one question. Marty had made a comment that the park would be a better setting for that. Now, and we have no direction on that. We can't do anything on that. I'm just curious to your position on that. If it was sit in the park.
I think so. I think so. It puts it much farther away from any homes. I mean, if you look at where that's located, I mean, there are homes all around, and on the north side, the south side, along on the east side, and on the west side. I mean, we're on the west side of this property, so we would be the people closest to the tower, but the neighbor, for example, across on the south looks directly at it. And if you look at like where Suzette lives, right back on Thompson, which Thompson is a great street, I mean, literally, they would look down the hill. In fact, if you went up further, John Patterson, once the leaves come off the trees, all those people, same thing. And even as far as Guthrie, the people that sit up on the homes right on the park up there. But if it was placed, back either the corner by where the utility buildings are, or back up in those trees somewhere, it could be quite a distance from homes. I'd be personally much more comfortable with that.
Okay,
so.
good.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition? I mean, one of the longest continuances I've ever heard.
We weren't expecting it to continue. Okay. I'm Randy Lippert, and I own property at 3120 Thompson Avenue. And then also, I forgot the address there, but 3025 Thompson Avenue too. And as far as the continuance, I kind of disagree. I think we should move forward with it while we're here. But in regards to what they'd spoke, it's the wrong location for it, and for a variety of reasons. But if it would be possible to get it up in Grandview, because that would be the high point, of that area, I think that would serve their purposes a lot better. Plus, what's going to happen with this is that we're not looking at one outbuilding, and we're looking at one tower, obviously, but we're going to have multiple antennas, I'm sure, on it. In order for them to defer their costs and stuff, their investment and everything, they're going to be leasing out space to other carriers is what's going to happen. And also, when I called and talked to the gentleman yesterday, it was just up here, the appellant, I said, where's the other outbuildings going to go? And that's the reason why they have the 110-foot by 40-foot space. He said, well, they don't necessarily have to do that. They could rent space from the church on the inside. Let's be real. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that they're going to lease space on the tower to these other carriers and stuff, but they're going to put their own outbuildings. And their own outbuildings are going to be of probably similar size for their servers and stuff inside, and of course that space has to be conditioned. So we're talking compressors, external, and also they're going to have backup generators, and I'm sure these generators are going to be diesel. So think about the noise going down the line here real quick and stuff. You're not just talking about one building. There's going to be multiple buildings there. Blending in is one thing. Wrought iron fence, that's not going to do much for keeping the noise down if diesel generators kick in. And they're going to kick in the winter. It's not going to be in the summertime. If they do in the summer, it's going to be during the day, usually at peak time. But in the winter, it's going to be most likely at night when things are quiet down there. So keep in mind about that as we go forward. But I also had went up on East 33rd Street real quick, and Grandview Church, Grandview School up there may have the acreage for one. I know I asked him, he said they entertained that, but I don't know how much energy or effort was put into the entertainment of it. What kind of offer did they make them? It might have been that they could have went forward more, made more of an effort, offered more money, whatever the finances, through Grandview. So they've got a space out behind up there that would just be almost ideal for this. I drove up there this morning and it's wide open, and I just think that would be a better place for a tower like this, and it would also be at a high point too. So again, this is the wrong place for a variety of reasons, but the other thing is you got to keep in mind the elevation changes. Where they've chosen is really a low spot. It's not down there at East 33rd, East 29th and Easton, but it's also not up at top of the hill. So when you take a look, for example, where they're talking to the street elevation of Thompson, you're probably looking at about a 35, 40-foot drop, okay, from the street elevation at Thompson. So we're talking down here, we're talking Thompson street elevation here, you're talking my porch, maybe another 20, 25 feet up above, we're talking 65-foot drop to there, and a house next to me also. Then you go to John Patterson, you're up here, then you go to Guthrie, you're up here. So just keep in mind the visual of what's happening here. We're not looking, my angle of view 600 feet away is not going to be the portion down below. It's going to be what's above the treetops and through the trees when there's no leaves, no foliage on it and stuff. So it's the wrong place. I do believe that it could be more effort, more energy put into trying to find a better place. Okay?
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in opposition? And keep in mind, all these are being read into the record, so if you can't make it next, I don't know what's going to happen, but if you can't make it next month, it's still read into the record.
Richard Bright. I own the property at 3108 Thompson. It's directly north of the proposed area for the tower. Adding to what has already been said by the last two folks up here, Hospice has air tanks and towers in the back of their property. I mean air tanks and equipment in the back of their property. We hear that, and that's a lot further away than what the equipment would be from the tower. So, and backing up a little bit, I also am not in favor of the continuance. I think we should have a decision made today because we have the neighbors here that are concerned with it. The biggest issue that I bring forward to you is I spoke with and met Larry Vagrock. He's the operations manager of the KDFR 91 FM radio station here in Des Moines. And I also spoke with Mike Fick. He's the owner. They have a 500-foot tower. They're located at 2350 Northeast 14th Court, which is very similar, almost directly to the east of the area. As Randy mentioned, we're low here where the Verizon wants it. We're moving forward to the east and higher, and we're talking a 500-foot radio station tower, where Verizon was looking at an 80-foot tower. When I spoke with the general manager and the owner, they do lease and they do have space on their tower for other cell companies, for other cell towers. They have the space for the building. They've told me that U.S. Cellular just left their area, but they have others. I believe TJ Mobile's on there. And so there is other locations available. If there was a good faith effort put forward by the company to look for it, they'll find it, because this was real easy for me to do. And I think that there's probably more out there. This is on Hubble. It's more of a commercial area rather than the residential setting that we're all opposed to, which I know that from what they're saying, the residential doesn't matter, but it doesn't have the 10 acres in our area. And I would be one that when the trees are gone, or when the leaves are gone in the wintertime, I'll look at it. I'll look at all of it. And that's not the best site. Another issue back in the late 70s, 78, 79, when our neighborhood, the cul-de-sac, was developed. It was developed on a, with Mid-American Energy and with the city of Des Moines in a joint effort to be a pilot program for underground cabling of electrical systems. So we were one of the first on the east side, and that was to eliminate the telephone poles, so you don't have to see them. We do have street lamps, street poles on our street, but we are, for the most part, our entire block is electric. We have the small boxes in the front yard. It was found to be a good effort. The visual was great. They have used that from our neighborhood moving east to Altoona and to Pleasant Hill in the newer areas. And when you go up there, that's what today's construction is mostly based on. So that's another reason that we'd like to keep the airspace clean. And one thing that I mentioned at the last meeting, if anyone had a chance, when you're on 235 and you're heading northeast, when you're on the interstate, when you take the Easton Boulevard exit, as you exit that 235, you look to the right, and that's Hubble and Grand Avenue following through. You see all the commercial areas. You see cell towers. If you look to the left from Easton Boulevard, as far northeast as you can see in the neighborhoods, it is beautiful green bushy treetops. The only thing that stands out is the blue water tower. So the area is clean right now, and we'd like to keep it that way by keeping cell towers out of the immediate residential areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would I be allowed to speak on behalf of my two neighbors right here who both have health issues and don't feel they stand.
Let me check. Since she's already talked.
You can bring the mic.
Okay. Would this be the last one talking? Go ahead, Suzette, yeah.
Mrs. Vitalis lives right behind the church. She owns 3 lots. This lot right here is where her house is located. This lot is a very beautiful garden area, and this lot is a very beautiful garden area with a gazebo. She also has a greenhouse in the backyard. Lovely, lovely property. Peg Hoffman lives in this house here. Both of these houses, when they were designed as passive solar homes. So they both have lots of glass on the south side of the house. Mrs. Vitalis has a deck that's 15 foot in the air, and I believe Peg Hoffman's deck is also 15 foot in the air. They are both very concerned about what this is going to do to their view with the building. They are concerned about what this is going to do to the value of their property, because any property that's along here that's impacted because of how real estate agents do comparables will impact their properties also. What this map does not show you is the terrain in our neighborhood, and there is a slope that goes down from here and comes right down. My property drains right from the park and right across Luella's and right down into this church lot. This is very hilly, and it goes up. When all these deciduous trees lose their leaves, everybody in this area is going to see this pole.
I'm an old East Side boy myself. I know the area quite well. Thank you. Are we done with all the oppositions, or anybody else that wants to talk? Okay. Quite a run here, folks. The issue before us is just a continuance right now. We've heard city staff's version, what they would like to see. I guess I'm open to opinions. I really do hate continuances, but in light of the fact that we've got these other issues hanging in front of us, maybe it's in the best interest for everybody. I would hope, I mean, after listening to all the people's comments, that there's some other areas you might want to check out within a month, but it is a request for a continuance, so.
Well, Mr. Chair, are we open for discussion here?
Absolutely.
We had 6 of us last month. It was 3 and 3. Mm-hmm. So if he wants a full board next month, may or may not get that. We could have 6 of us. We're right back where we were before. Mm-hmm. You know, do I throw away my card and pick another one up out of the deck, or here's what I've got in my hand? I would like to just hear the case today and deal with it as it is, because we can't guarantee next month that there will be 6 or that there will be 7. There could just be 5. Mm-hmm. We cannot guarantee that month to month. And with what Marty had said, you know, if people want to, and I'm not trying to say this like negatively, but if people want to just kind of roll the dice and hope there's more next month, I don't think that's a good reason for a continuance.
That irritates me more than anything.
I know it potentially can be allowable, but since we continued it once, I don't like to keep putting things off again and again.
I don't want people up there counting votes, and
Right.
you don't know.
And I think from their benefit, the quote shot clock, I think they'd want to know sooner rather than later, so they can make alternative plans if they need to.
But here's my thought. I think he's heard enough that it is the wrong location, and there has been a plethora of options that are available to him. What I'm hoping that might happen, if I were to vote for a continuance, is that they find a different spot, and we might not see the issue at all.
But Mr. Chair, you missed the hearing last month. He gave us evidence of why this spot is needed, why this immediate vicinity is needed.
You mean there's
coverage question.
Yeah, there was a coverage question. There was evidence provided of, we need coverage here. It's not like, yeah, let's go over and put it in the commercial district because it blends in better. That's not how cell phone companies decide where they
No,
locate
but I'm thinking the
towers.
park. What an excellent opportunity there. And that's within feet, hundreds of feet of where they.
One might challenge that the park should be our most natural setting, not a man-made impacted one.
Well, sitting next to Glendale and Waveland, as I do, there's plenty in there, and it never bothers me, but anyway. So I guess what my view is, give them 30 days to make up their mind. We're going to hear it next month, whether, I mean, I'm not, he'll never get past next month, I can just about guarantee it, but staff feels a little more comfortable if we grant it, so I guess I'm leaning towards giving them the continuance. So, any other thoughts?
I don't disagree with the chair. This is the first time we saw this handout on the shot clock provision.
Yeah.
Obviously, we heard from the neighborhood. We also heard from the appellate that said from the higher up authority, he's asking for a continuance. As I read this shot clock provision, I don't think we, unfortunately, have much of a chance if we vote it down and it goes to court anyhow.
Right.
So I think, and the neighbors haven't seen that handout till just now, and they may want time to look at it also. And maybe there is a discussion, another site. The gentleman did cover that in the last meeting, and I thought we mentioned Grandview Park, and it, for some reason, I don't remember if it was I thought it wasn't acceptable, but I can't remember exactly. But I'm not opposed to the continuing, just to be fair. And also because I think the neighbors may want to look at that provision and do a little more research, because I'm not so sure from my brief looking in absolutely no law degree that we would stand much of a chance.
That's my worry too, right. Other thoughts? Let's get out there and see what we've got. The applicant has requested a continuance to the August 28th meeting. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 4-1.
For the continuance.
For the continuance. Yeah. So everybody knows, all your statements will carry forward on this. We will have those for it. We'd like to see you back here again, but if you can't make it, what you said today is going to stand up. Yes?
I'm trying to think. You want to go make multiple copies?
Yeah.
This is a little handout that I actually created for the board that's a summary of some of the recent case law.
Yes,
that
thank you for
that are very, and cases very close to this case. So I think they're very helpful in how the board looks at these. And at some point, I do want to have some additional board development session or something where we kind of go over these in a more generic sense, not on a specific case. So that you can have a better understanding, because we do have new members on the board that haven't ever seen a cell tower case.
You gonna buy lunch?
I don't know. That's up to Mike's budget, Mike Ludwig's budget, I have a feeling. So.
I can see this is going south.
I know that that's been done in the past on the board trainings.
But I would like to follow up with what Eric said. They did a great job with that little handout, and it was very, very well done and timely. But I think the neighbors need to be aware of some of the federal law.
To get it too, so.
Some of the federal laws that we run up against.
Oh, yeah. And Marty's well aware of how the federal government pretty much pigeonholes a lot of the decisions that we make concerning cell towers. There are a lot of leeway that we do have, but the federal government, as long as the neighbors know that the federal government really pins us back in a lot of the decision-making process that we would normally go through for some of these things. So, and I don't know who the gentleman was that was talking about third world countries with ear and I mean, we are told flat out we cannot take that into consideration. It's just federal government.
Well, you can consider it, but you need to hear it as expert testimony, not from an individual that wouldn't.
Well, I don't think that they consider, can't consider radio frequency.
No, not radio frequency, yeah. But like air quality on the the generator for the building or
Sound
something.
quality.
Yeah, those are valid concerns that you can mitigate.
Sure.
With your conditions and so forth. So, but I think on some of these assertions, we have to be careful that they're coming from experts and not necessarily from a lay opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat this to death anymore, so it's been continued. I would hope that the Verizon gentleman would meet with these people a little bit more and have a little bit more leeway. My other job here is a telecommunications engineer, and so when I hear you can't do something, that just tells me there's plenty of other options out there.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the other thing I was going to offer is on Grandview Park specifically, I will look into the city's policy side from the parks. I know that we have a long-standing procedure in how these would have to be done to be allowed in the park.
And even the golf course, too.
Yep, golf courses, parks, cemeteries, we have a policy. There's a reason why you haven't seen any going in parks probably for over 15 years, so. Not that that can't be done, but there is a policy that we have to follow to be able to do that, so. I'll try to get that outlined for you as well.
And I don't want to belabor this any further, but there's something that I feel is kind of important that I think that we should know as a board in the future. I'd like to know where cell phone towers are citywide, what neighborhoods they're in, what size lots are on now, are they residential neighborhoods, where are they? I'd really like to know that at some time, if we're going to have a special session.
That's going to take an extreme amount of time, so.
Okay, just drive around in your car.
I'm not saying.
You can see them.
I don't know if we could have it done next month,
Well,
but I mean, yes, I can.
I know as an example that when the applicant was here like last month and he showed his coverage map, he had little dots that showed where there were other towers.
Certainly, and we asked for that information from them.
Yeah.
But for us to generate that from what we have.
I wasn't sure if it was a GIS thing and you hit a button.
Well, you're right, we probably need to move that direction, but I don't know if we could do it yet.
No, I don't want you to move mountains, but if it was something you maybe had access to.
No, we'll do our best.
Okay.
But I don't know if I can come up with that in a month.
That's okay.
If you're trying to get it for this particular case.
I think for going forward.
Yeah, I think just going forward to help us out.
Okay, folks, appreciate everybody coming down here. I know it's probably not the best decision, but given with what we had in front of us, this is, hope we can live with this until next month. Thank you all very much. This seems to be a continuing thing here. Item 7 was continued from the June 26th meeting. This conditional use permit exception and variance at 2 Hartford.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And actually, I haven't also gotten a verbal indication of the same request from the AT&T, Mr. Ward has asked to address the board to request a continuance as well.
Ha-ha, Bill, there you go.
We're not going to do anything today. It's been the most unproductive. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No?
Now he's indicating he'll proceed.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry.
Good. Thank you.
I apologize. I misinterpreted his yes. Because he had spoke to me over there when I was sitting down that was.
Good. I would like to hear this one.
Okay. So we're looking at item number 7, which is located within what's called the McKinley School Columbus Park area. I think I grabbed the wrong, nope. Did I grab the wrong one here? No. I gotta find my map though.
New propagation.
Okay. I'll let the appellant present propagation.
Are these from the last?
They may be from the last order since then. This is at the former Washington school site. I don't know if Bill ever lived on the south side or not and be familiar with
Played ball down there. Our old stone field.
Played ball down there, okay.
I'm all around this town.
Oh, we have pictures in here from the come and go.
Yeah, there's a bunch of sodas.
Wow. Maps. The property is located, actually it has double frontage. It's the old Washington school site. You can see the building here in the aerial. There's frontage along Hillside and frontage along Hartford. This is where Hartford does a dogleg into South Union Street.
That's how you get to Baradas.
So another thing that was discussed actually was St. Anthony's School was a potential location discussed in the hearing last time. That's just out of the photo or the aerial up in this area. I want to preface by saying this request is coming about based on their initial search looked to put the tower in a location as a matter of right, but staff discouraged them from those locations because of a Two Rivers plan that we have in place now that was looking to redevelop this area. And so although the current zoning in place at this time may have been more conducive to this type of request, we are actually wanting to look at higher ground and a lower profile tower, which would actually take it into the neighborhood, also mitigating impacts of character along the Des Moines River views from downtown, that type of thing. So there's kind of this outside piece of character issue coming into play from where staff is looking at this from a planning standpoint. So that's why this request is coming about. One of the other alternatives I believe that the appellant did investigate was the possibility of doing something on the St. Anthony's School and church site. My understanding from them is that that fell through, and so here we are on this site. They are actually looking to go at the very north edge, if you can see where the garage structure is in the aerial. Which actually, the reasoning for that, I believe, is likely the fact that it provides the least interference to the other functions of the site, which are the parking, drive aisle maneuvering, and access. What it does do is put their lease area up against another public street, which if you go to screen those areas with an opaque fence, you actually have another appeal, which is the fence in the front yard setback. So you'll see that on there. The other thing I should point out is that based on the size of the site and the placement, it also puts the height of the tower setback from the property line at a variance. And one of the things I didn't do in much detail last time was explain our rationale for why we believe that variance should be granted. And that actually is, and I'm going to address that right now. Based on, if you look at the area of the neighborhood that the tower could potentially go in to meet their coverage need. And you don't find, first of all, you don't find as many lots as large as this. There may be a handful, if any. St. Anthony's was one of the possibilities. So you begin to say, well, if we put them on other lots, can we meet this height setback? Well, if those aren't viable alternatives to meet their coverage, then really this is the only location to do that. So then we have to look at the character of the area and the character of the site. We don't want this tower placed in such a manner to meet the setback as it would cause them to have to remove the building that's there, which would not be reasonable for a reasonable return of the property. I don't think just to build a cell tower, it would be reasonable to remove something that was already an income generating property. So from that standpoint, we don't think it would meet we think it would meet the test for a variance. Also, from what I call kind of this, it's almost an inverse test of the variance. You're supposed to make sure that it meets the essential character. I think by not putting it in this location, you would actually take away from the essential character by removing trees, other things that are amenities to the site. So it's almost an inverse view of how you apply that test for the variance in this case. So I would submit that this is the least intrusive area of the site to be able to do that. And what it causes is them not being able to meet that separation or the setback provision based on the height of the tower. Now, there's two things going on here. The appellant has indicated that he has the flexibility to do a lower tower at 120 feet. The dilemma for that is, if that is the case, then the co-locate potential goes away. Staff's perspective is we actually want the higher tower so that we can limit the number of towers that might seek to go in the area with other providers. So if we're going to put this intrusion, we want it to be this least intrusive test, and you can read a little bit about that on what I provided you. So again, our perspective from staff's perspective is this is a good site to meet their coverage need and avoid affecting or impacting character in other areas that are more visible, that are more of a community benefit. And from the perspective of the site itself, we don't believe other locations on the site are as conducive, and this is the least intrusive as well within the site. That said, we are not comfortable with an opaque fence around the perimeter of the equipment area. We'd rather see it open and more visible from a public perspective, but have an enclosure that is more in line with the character of the building, like the school building, so require all of the providers to have equipment buildings that are of the brick type that blend into the area. They would look like an accessory building you might have seen with the school at one time in the history of the school. I know they used to have incinerators that were, separated away from the building, that type of thing, that would have been little brick structures. So I don't think that, I think that the character is actually better by not putting that opaque fence up against the street, but rather do something that blends in, such as a black coated fence or black wrought iron type fence where the fence doesn't become obvious, and then the building looks more natural on the landscape. Again, we reviewed this, we believe, based on the propagation, and I'm going to let them cover there was some requests for some revised propagation. I'll let them cover that. I'll let them speak to their willingness to do other things for the, other site improvements that would mitigate some of the character concerns of putting this in this location. I think they're willing to offer some. And they have worked with neighbors. I've had a discussion with the appellant, and they've extended out to neighbors. I don't know if they've done anything to change the opinion of those neighbors, but I think they've offered to do other things to enhance the issues, to enhance or mitigate some of those concerns that were raised. Are there anything?
You got the consent map there, you want to show that?
And I've passed around the cards. I'm not sure if any additional came in since the last time, I can't recall. We do notify towers at 300 feet rather than at 250, just because of that kind of increased concern about neighborhood impact.
Okay. Questions? Thanks, Eric. Applicant represented the applicant.
Good afternoon. Steve Ward, Ward Development, 15 Park Place, Swansea, Illinois, representing AT&T. As Eric said, we continued from last month. There were some questions as to type of tower, height of tower, and some neighborhood concerns. Also the fencing, which we agreed to. We'll agree to do the not the non-opaque fencing, and then screen our shelters to match the school. That's no problem. There was a discussion with our original application that this would be a monopole tower. Staff recommended that we go to a stealth tower, which would be basically a slick stick or a flagpole without a flag. That's no problem for us as well. One of the issues that came up, in which we said, yeah, we can do this. We have a 140-foot tower proposed. Who's asked, can you lower that? Is that the minimum that you need? And we said, yeah, we can lower it, But the effect of lowering is it takes away elevations for other users, which may take away from the number of co-locations. So one of the things that we do have is we do have some additional propagation maps, which I'll show. This addresses your one question, do we know where our other towers are? Yes, we do. One of the things that you may ask in the future is anytime a carrier comes in for an application such as this, they give you a list of all their sites in Des Moines. That way you can have an updated database.
Okay, cool.
This is our existing coverage where, in my simplistic mind, red is good, green is bad.
Which is the opposite of how I think, but.
Everybody else has the other way. I'm also colorblind, so hopefully I don't get this mixed up. But the green is the area where we do not have coverage currently.
Sure.
You can see that on this map, that's the area of the area of concern right here. So what we did is we modeled this at the 140 feet, which is what we're asking for. And you can see how that hole fills in almost completely, with the exception of this little area here and possibly this little area up in here. The question was, can we go to 120 feet? Yes, but now you see that hole is opening back up again. That's because of one, we're on that hill, and two, the trees canopy prevents that signal from propagating down that hill. And then we looked at it again at 130 feet, and again, you can see that hole is still there. So anytime, as I said before, as you keep going lower, that hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger, not only for us, but for anybody else that would go on the site. So again, this kind of shows an overview of all the different coverages, where this is what we've proposed, and what we've said is this is what we could live with, but it does create a hole in the network, which obviously we don't want. But is it something we can live with? Possibly. And would we accept? Yes. But again, it takes away at least one other user that could use that site. One of the other concerns was there was a residence neighbor that expressed some concerns. We did have a conversation with him, asked if there's anything we could do to mitigate the site, to anything we could do with our design to help the site. He said basically no, he just didn't like the tower where it was. One of the things that was mentioned was that the property was in disrepair. There's some landscaping issues. There may be a chain link fence on the property that's in disrepair. We didn't really come out and ask the question, but I think we implied the answer. You know, if that's something we can do while we have construction crews out there, you know, we can clean up some of the landscaping, clean up that chain link fence, we're happy to do that.
I'm just a little curious, what, know the Padre down there at St. Anthony's, what happened there?
The issue was twofold. The lease was very difficult to, you know, get through the committees, and we never really got to a consensus. And the big problem was, where do you put it? They didn't want it next to the school. They didn't want it next to the church. They didn't want it way out in the front, and they didn't want it on the playground. So it was kind of like, what's really left except for across the street? And I think that's where they have their grotto, and they were like, well, we don't want it over there either. So it wasn't really a thing where we couldn't get anything done. It's like, where can we put this where we can get a large enough area for not only the tower, our equipment, and for future co-locators. The other problem was, you know, where we are now, we're at 140 feet. St. Anthony's is 40 feet lower. So that was going to be a more substantial tower where we'd be looking at 180 to 190 foot tower. They were concerned that aesthetic next to the church, you know, going down Indianola would be an issue.
Makes sense, okay. Question. Brooke.
Is that area by St. Anthony's going northwest viable?
Going northwest, you're starting, I'm not from the area, is that the industrial area?
Yeah, I mean, there's one of our friends owns a large piece of land down there. And
we originally were in that permitted use industrial area. We had a lease in place, and we were advised that's a future planning area for the city of Des Moines, and they asked us to find another location.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we are where we are.
Okay. I don't know if it's the same location. I'm just saying there's...
It's that same general planning area down there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak in support? I can see you're ready to go. Now, anybody speak in opposition? There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Richard Powell. My address is 2340 East 12th Street in Des Moines. I'm speaking here on behalf of my parents, who are William and Frances Powell, who live at the corner, I don't know if that's there, okay, cool. Who live right here on the corner of Southwest First and Hillside. Okay? First of all, I want to say it's come to my attention that some of my remarks at the last meeting may have offended some property owners, or maybe some of the members of the board. I have a big problem. I speak from my heart and not my head. I'm a very emotional person. I have to learn that when in public forum like this, got to start using the head more, less the heart. That said, so I apologize to everybody concerned. As far as the issue at hand, I have got a letter from a woman, or the family, who lives right here. And I'd like to read it into the record if that's not a problem.
That's quite right.
It says, "To whom it may concern, as the homeowner of the property of 24 Hillside Avenue, west of the George Washington School Building, I do not want the cell phone tower to be built. For starters, your letter that we received stated that there was not enough recommended area to build the tower. That should be enough to put an end to the idea of putting it there. It will lower our resale value and be an eyesore in our neighborhood. Putting cell towers near residential properties is just bad business. For residential owners, it means decreased property values for local businesses, realtors and brokers representing and listing these properties. It would create decreased income, and for city governments, it results in decreased revenue, or parentheses, property taxes. Also, there are health issues that could arise due to the tower being built in small neighborhoods extremely close to existing homes. We are having more families with children moving into the neighborhood. Here's an excerpt on health issues that cell towers could cause. There is strong evidence that electromagnetic radiation from the cell phone towers is damaging to human and, in parentheses, animal health. A study into the effects of the cell tower on a herd of dairy cattle was conducted by the Bavarian state government in Germany and published in 1998. The erection of the tower caused adverse health effects, resulting in measurable drop in milk yield. Relocating cattle restored the milk yield. Moving them back to the original pasture recreated the problem again. Dairy cow study. Over 100 scientists and physicians at Boston and Harvard University schools of public health have called cell phone towers a radiation hazard. A human study, and then in parentheses again, it says Kempton West, in 2007, measured blood levels of serotonin and melatonin, important hormones involved in brain messaging, mood, sleep regulation, and immune system function, both before and 5 months after the activation of a new cell site. 25 participants lived within 300 meters of the site. Substantial, unforgivable changes occurred with respect to both hormones in almost all participants' Kempton West study. Our house is at least 200 feet from the building, while the other neighbors are exceptionally closer. Please rethink this proposal to build a cell phone tower so close to these homes. I myself do not want to take any risk to my children's health nor my pets." And then it's signed Mary Oxford, or Missy Oxford, 24 Hillside here in Des Moines. I couldn't agree with her more on that. The last time I was here, I'm more about safety. The tower, like I said, 120 foot, 140 foot, I don't care how big you make it. Where they want to put it, it's just too darn close. I mean, everybody says everything's safe. Well, the Titanic was supposed to be safe, so was the Hindenburg, and not one but 2 space shuttles. Anything can happen. That's all I'm saying. Another thing I kind of want to add in here is, I'm going to say maybe a character issue, because I did talk with this man about a couple weeks ago, and he basically gave me the impression of, you have no need to come back here because what you said last time is all you get to say. You don't get to come back, so I really appreciate the second opportunity. I don't like that. The other thing that they're kind of giving you a little smoke and mirrors on is the property itself. Now, I'm technologically challenged.
One more minute.
Okay, technologically challenged, I live old school. This, as of 11 o'clock today,
Where do you still buy that?
I got the film on eBay. This is where they want to put the tower, right here. That's awful darn close. This is what the property looks like on the hillside part of the school. There's one. There's two. Looks really lovely. 3. I love the tree growing up through the sidewalks from the steps of the street. Love that. Here's a shot of the old playground area in the back of the school. I tried to climb the chain link fence, but I didn't really want to get hurt. But it has severe overgrowth of what we call spit elms, weeds that turn into trees.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Here's the other side of Hartford.
There's one of those trees right there.
Where that's on the Hartford side. And then here's the other part with the overgrowth too.
Mm-hmm.
Now I did my own little pulse sample.
Gotta have you start wrapping it up.
Okay, I've done my own little pulse sample of everybody around here. I printed flyers also. Sandra Roca, 36 Hartford Avenue. She rents. She voted yes. Peggy Ray, 21 East Hillside. She rents. She voted no. Larry Fast, 26 Hillside. He owns. He voted no. Samuel Dominguez, 13 Hartford Avenue. He owns. He voted no. Rose Soda, 2020 South Union. She owns. She voted no. Patricia Wright, number 5 Hillside. She owns. She voted no. Now, the last time I was here, guys, I asked for a roll call, I want to say, of the cards. Never got it. But I've got at least 6, 7 no's. Put it somewhere else, people.
You can have a full view of the cards, but, you know, we just have to have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's okay. But this thing really just needs to be somewhere else. This neighborhood is trying to come back. Across the street about...
Richard, I got to cut you off.
Okay.
It's over 5 minutes, so, I mean, in
Well,
fairness to everybody
building
else.
a Habitat for Humanity house. Those people are going crazy when they found out about this.
Appreciate your input.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here to speak in opposition? Yes. Richard.
Oh, okay, sure.
Good afternoon. Julie Bright, 3108 Thompson. And actually, I was here last month and spoke in opposition of the property, the cell tower that wanted to go on Easton Boulevard. And after that meeting, my biggest concern after walking away from that meeting was if this board would allow the one on Easton, what would happen across the city? I mean, it just went to that neighborhood, what's going to happen? And we talked about how can we get a map of where all the towers are in the city. Didn't know where we could do that, but anyway. So then when we found about this one, then my concern that I was thinking about seems pretty real is how many neighborhoods are going to get invaded by these cell towers? And especially when the zoning is 10 acres, and they're trying to put them on very small properties. The one at Easton's 3 acres, this one's less than 2. And so my concern is really a citywide concern of, you know, how many exceptions are you going to make and what are you doing to the neighborhoods in Des Moines? And I know I heard him just talk about the city and their concern with their plan. You know, the neighborhoods have their concerns of their plans, and I don't think any neighborhood really wants a cell tower in it when there's no space around it. It's just very invasive, and it's sort of like commercializing the neighborhoods, and it makes it very not friendly. So that's why I'm here. I thought I'd stay and talk about this one. There was plenty with the other groups, so that's all I had to say.
Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in opposition? Mr. Ward, you got about 3 minutes if you want to just wrap it up.
To Richard's comment, when we did speak, I wasn't sure of the rules of order, and I said he may want to contact staff because I didn't know if the public hearing was closed, if it would be reopened for public comment. That's all I meant. Wasn't trying to get him not to show up, obviously. As to the safety of the tower, obviously we follow all building codes. This is built to typically a higher standard than most other construction. This is a flagpole type tower, so it's got a lot less surface area on the pole, carries a lot less ice, those kind of things, a lot less wind load. As to the health regulations, this isn't built and operated in accordance with the FCC guidelines. We have a federal license, and we monitor the site before construction, during construction, and after construction, that we comply with all the FCC requirements. And I'm here to answer any questions that the board might have.
You don't own the property, correct?
We lease the property. We have a long-term leasehold on just the piece that we're on. We have certain rights across the other parts of the property, but we just basically control that.
But some of the pointing out with the vegetation is if you have no direct.
We have no direct lease of that, but what we've offered to the neighbor was we can clean up that fence. You know, we can do some landscaping. You know, while we got construction crews and people mobilized, now's the time to ask rather than, you know, down the road possibly.
I just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have one question. You're probably in compliance with federal regulation, but just for my own information, I guess out of curiosity, what is the stress threshold of these poles in terms of wind?
Every building code's a little bit different. The IBC code is typically, I'd have to dig deep. It's either 90 miles an hour or 110 mile an hour wind with a ½ inch or 3/4 inch ice all at the same time. And then typically cell towers have a, if you want to call it a weak point or a break point, so you design them so if there is a failure, let's say the anchor bolts have twice the strength, some point in the tower would have like a little bit less than that strength. So instead of the anchor bolts failing and the tower falling, the pole would bend, and typically they kind of fold like a soda straw.
Mel?
Steve, there was some comments about the, disrepair of the property. And I realize that you're not the owner and you would be the tenant, but if you're going to negotiate a lease for this property, obviously the owner, what he wants to know is how much you're going to pay me. And within that lease, could you negotiate yourself and say, hey, well, if we're going to pay you this good money, you need to keep the property in good repair? Is there a way without us being involved in that, if we were inclined to approve this, that you could kind of say, hey, it is our tower and somewhere our name is on the door of the building, so it kind of reflects poorly on you if it's a poorly maintained parcel. Is there any way you follow my lead here?
As my dad always said, everything's negotiable. So
yeah, right.
Can that be put into a lease? Yes, but we already have a lease, so it'd have to be an amendment to the lease.
Okay, okay. I was just
what
curious.
It can be is part of the, I'm assuming it could be part of the special use or part of the conditional use that runs with the land, not necessarily the tower.
Yeah, and we'd have to talk to staff about that, and see if that's appropriate. But again, if this would pass, I do like your idea of maybe just with your own goodwill, you do a little initial spiff up. But just like anything else, you can clean it up now, but 3 years from now, if somebody else doesn't keep up, it could be in bad shape.
And again, if it's part of the conditional use permit, that can be part of any other carrier coming in for their building permits and for that site to be in compliance.
Sure. Okay. And I'm not sure, Mike, since it's a conditional use permit by the tower operator or the landowner himself? Lyman Enterprises, is that the landowner himself?
The landowner.
Okay. All right, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last questions for staff? Eric, I do have one. I don't see anything in here about height of the antenna.
Yeah, and that's what I spoke to.
Yeah, but I mean, so.
But we recommended in favor of the variance.
Right, okay.
So the recommendation was to
140 feet?
Approve the variance, but what we didn't do is give our basis for how we found it met the test variance.
Okay.
And so I did that for the record today.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we'll close the public portion, go to board decision. And Richard, I like what you read. It makes a lot of sense, but I'm going to have Mike Kelly, because the federal government is the one that regulates this. It binds our hands.
Sir, I realize.
Okay. I mean.
The only thing I kind of wanted to add is if you're going to have stealth capability, the only way I can see right now is it looks like a giant weed. Or, to be honest with you, I love a Christmas story. Make it look like the leg lamb. I might put some thought out there.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got conditional use permit, the exception of the land, and variance on the tower to be set back. And you've already agreed that you're not going to do the fencing, you'll do the neighborhood block?
Yes, per staff
Okay.
recommendations.
All right,
I think we gave a drawing to that.
okay.
Yes, and we recommended it, so it's within our staff recommendation to have the stealth technology.
Okay, good, all right.
That's actually part of the limitation of co-location too, though, in that when you go with the stealth technology, again, it takes multiple sets of antenna apparatus to get the same coverage. So that divides the number of potential providers on that tower in half.
Brooke?
A question just occurred to me, and I don't know who to ask. Let's say 5 years from now and all the technology changes and these towers are obsolete. Are they obligated to take them down?
Yeah, and that's what the criteria about the lease in your criteria, they have to provide evidence of a lease where that would be removed if it was no longer used for that.
And that's in the,
That's actually in your criteria for your
Okay,
approval.
I thought
And they
so.
have also provided it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mel?
Eric, just a quick one. To your knowledge, did you have any communication from Indianola Hills Neighborhood Association about this? Any for or against?
I did.
I didn't see anything in the cards.
All the neighborhood associations are given the agenda.
Right.
So they generally weigh in on the ones that they want to weigh in on.
Okay, so, so the neighborhood associations don't get a direct card, is that correct?
Oh, they get a card.
Yeah, okay, so that's kind of what I'm getting at.
If the appeal is within a neighborhood, they do,
Right,
yes.
right, yeah, so, all right.
So like, for example, McKinley Park, McKinley School Columbus Park neighborhood would have gone to Jim Post.
Right,
For
right.
this, and as far as I know, and I never got
Is that
it.
in his neighborhood, or would this be in Indianola Hills by then?
Is this Indianola Hills?
But basically, you've had no neighborhood correspondence
You're
at
right, it
all?
might be, well, shoot. What did we put on the agenda?
Oh, yeah, I suppose that would be.
I didn't get communication from Indianola Hills either.
Yeah, Indianola Hills is what it says here.
Okay.
And McKinley, Columbus.
I was just curious if a neighborhood association.
Actually, both of those neighborhoods got notification because it's on that borderline.
I was kind of curious. I would think if they were concerned about a detrimental character in their neighborhoods and how it would look, they would have sent in a letter or a card.
Similar to the one you had, well, we didn't actually have the neighborhood association weigh in on it, but
Okay,
I'm not sure what you call, I don't know how we recognize North Central.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have anything, you didn't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, we'll close the public portion, go to board decision then.
Here are my thoughts. And I take real seriously what neighbors think. I mean, I always have on this board. I've always been very concerned about how it's going to impact neighbors and people that live in those areas. Cell towers, we have hundreds of them in this city. And we don't even notice them. I mean, I bet driving here, all of us passed cell phone towers, and we don't even pay any attention to them anymore. They're a fact of life. After our last meeting, there was an article on one of the Sunday papers that talked about cell phone towers. It is, we're going to have them, whether we like them or not. I mean, everybody has cell phones, we've got iPads, we're working on computers. I mean, our world is dependent upon these cell towers. I think a lot about the mommy with the new baby that's home that doesn't have a landline that depends on her cell phone. They've got to have coverage. We have to provide that coverage. I think it's a responsibility that we have. Our world's just changing. People don't have landlines anymore. They have cell phones. I mean, even in new homes, builders aren't even putting in landlines because everybody has cell phones. It's just going to be there, you know? And I appreciate that there are neighbors here that say, we don't want this, but it's in every neighborhood. They're everywhere. And, you know, just the map that this gentleman gave to us, we saw all these places where there were towers. I think last month we saw one, and there were a lot of towers on there. So there's all kinds of communication towers in our areas. So I think that we just have to keep that in mind. But also, I take to heart a lot of what the city recommends. And the city has said, we think that this is appropriate. If it's got to be here, this is the most appropriate place for it to be. I depend on those city recommendations, and I don't take it lightly for what they recommend. I think what Mike has said about the FCC, we are under a different set of rules. We can't say no just because we don't want it, just because somebody says, I don't want it in my backyard. I wish we could, but I don't think we can. I think that we are bound, that the FCC is saying, you have to give us a good reason about why you can deny it. And I haven't heard that on this particular case. So I'm sorry, but I have to vote for it.
One thing that I'd like to interject is that the argument made by the applicant, he included coverage issues, coverage data by presenting the maps, and I have not seen that from the opponents of this conditional use permit. And that would seem to be, if a decision to deny the conditional use permit is challenged, I think that's important, and that'll be important on review by a court of law.
And Linda, I want to give you some credit on nicely put comments. After our last meeting, Steve had shown his coverage map, and I'm like, aha, there's a cell phone tower where Park and Indianola hit. Okay, I'm going to go drive by that on the way home. I drive down East Park Avenue a couple times a week. I'm like, I'm going to go see where that is. And I had to scan and look above tree lines and kind of, oh, there it is, just to see that it was actually there. I don't notice it. And when I looked around it, there were a lot of nice little houses, and we have landscaping and nice yards, very near houses. It did not loom over the houses. It did not detract from them. I'm a little concerned that our perception that this detracts from property values, that's more perception than a reality. What detracts from our property values is how we take care of our properties in the city. You know, if you don't mow your lawn, if you don't paint your house, if you don't fix your car sitting in your driveway, that's what's going to affect your property value. And from our last applicant we had here that we deferred on the cell phone tower, questions were brought up, well, find a bigger lot, find a place on higher ground. This is what's being proposed by this applicant. He's found the largest lot he can in that immediate area. It's close to being the highest ground there is. It's on Hillside Avenue. You know, the former school site, while it's not being used as a school, it's an institutional use building, architecture, style, lot layout. It's kind of got a public value, a public benefit that you could say, or that's what it was intended for, as a property use. A cell phone tower very much fits in with that. It generally serves the community. It's not a publicly owned thing, but it's got a public value, much like if you had a transformer station in the neighborhood, or maybe a water standpipe. We have to have these things in our community. I think our goal is, how do we make it best fit in when there is a hardship and when there is a need? And if we're going to have brick architecture, and if we're going to have some decent landscaping that goes with it and some good conditions, I think that's the best that we could hope for. And we've got an applicant willing to do that. So, in fact, the new buildings would probably look better than the existing schools. So,
But that's the owner of that property.
yeah.
That's the person
right.
to take to task.
Yeah. So, no.
I wish I could. They're going to stop me, so.
So I'd be in support of the general staff recommendation if there'd be any further discussion about property maintenance, so be
Any
it.
further discussion?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
I'd like to make a couple comments. First of all, I guess that, I'm very sensitive to the opinions and comments that neighbors have made also. And we had a lot of people that visually find these to be in stark contrast to their neighborhood. And I think that these towers are being pushed into neighborhoods, and neighborhoods don't have a lot of defense. A lot of the federal regulations protect this industry. But I am very concerned about the adverse visual impact. And, this picture that we were given is just, that tower is in stark contrast to everything in the neighborhood. I do notice towers in my neighborhood, and I go to 4 Mile Creek Community Center to walk, and I'm very familiar with that neighborhood. And when I look at this cell tower, it is an incredible distraction. I don't think it fits. In the winter, it will stick up like a sore thumb.
Are you discussing that in terms of this item being?
Because that picture's the other site.
Right. No, I'm just saying that, I'm just using this as an example.
That as an example, not
That visually,
this specific.
the neighbors are very sensitive, I think, to the visual impact. I'm just using that as an example.
Gotcha.
And the fact that I'm very much aware of where cell towers are. I have concern about property values. I'm not sure that the industry has really exercised due diligence in really looking at all the possibilities out there. I thought it was interesting when some of the neighbors had done some of their own gumshoe reporting and were coming up with possibly some other possibilities. But we've kind of hashed this thing over. And, from my experience, in Europe, they use landlines equally to their cell phones, because in Europe, and I know that, we're not considering health impacts or safety impacts. We don't have the ability to do that. But in terms of usage, I think that, there may be a time when we decide that I have both. I have an iPhone and I have a landline. But in Europe, they use them equally because they're very sensitive to visual impacts. They're very sensitive to their neighborhoods. And Sweden, in fact, has extremely restrictive guidelines. So I'm really concerned about sustainability of our neighborhoods. This neighborhood is a very, I think it has a ton of potential. What an incredible view you guys have up there.
That's what I wanted to do.
It is an incredible view. I think that property has great potential. You folks need to get together as a neighborhood and develop that, because this is the kind of battles you end up with. Okay, excuse me, we need to wrap this up.
I can see all the cell towers from where that hill is.
Yeah.
So this western guard is wrong.
All right. So anyway, I'm afraid that unless we really look at the impacts on neighborhoods and property values and visual appeal, that this industry will not be motivated to come up with more technologies. They won't allocate money for development for better technology. And so I have difficulty supporting this.
Any other thoughts? I'll entertain a motion then.
I'm going to just go ahead and move staff recommendation.
Second.
And you're on board with that then? Okay. It's been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. I mean,
I just have one question.
you can say, yeah.
If the property owner fails to keep this property up, regardless of their contract with him or whatnot, who do we go to?
Weed commissioner.
I hate to point out, you'd probably have to start out with Sue Ann, the zoning enforcement officer.
Okay, that's all I need to
Polk
know.
County Weed.
Yeah.
Because my problem is this: talk is cheap. I'm a man of action, and if they're going to take care of the property, I could probably learn. We could probably learn to live with it. But like I said, as of 11 o'clock today, that's what that sideline property looked like.
Thank you for your input. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you for hearing me, guys.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too. And last but not least, item 10, amend the conditional use permit at 2335 Hickman Road.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, This item would allow for the Scores Sports Bar located at 2335 Hickman Road to construct a new patio behind the tavern along the north side of the building.
Did you say a new town?
Subject property is located just along Hickman Road, just west of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway. There's a car wash adjacent to the east. There's the Bike World warehouse across 24th Street to the west, and then there's two 8-unit multifamily residential uses on the property directly to the north. And the proposed patio would be located within this green space just to the north of the building. Point of reference, they're proposing a 20-foot wide patio, and I believe this parcel, the green space here is 86 feet. So you can imagine it would be just the southern fourth of that green space right there. Here's the sketch that they've submitted. You can see it would be a 20-foot by 60-foot patio. They would have a pergola above a 14-foot by 24-foot section. They would build a retaining wall here. As the site photos show, this hill does slope downward, so the patio kind of would be recessed into the ground about 5 feet. They're proposing a 8-foot tall solid wood fence along the west and east sides, and then a 6-foot tall solid wood fence at the north. And again, I think they're just proposing 6 feet rather than 8 there because of the grade change. And then they're also proposing significant landscaping and plantings around the patio. And then the other feature they're proposing is to connect the sidewalk along the east side of 24th Street. Right now, there's a break in the sidewalk between the existing tavern and the property to the north. So they are proposing to construct an 87-foot section of sidewalk there. This is just the layout of the existing tavern. You can see the exits, or the patio would be accessed by these two doors on the north side of the tavern. This first picture here shows the tavern. If you remember, last year the board granted the conditional use permit to have a 6-foot wide patio along the front of the building. This is looking from the east. You can see the existing tavern here, the multifamily structure to the north, and you can see the grade slopes towards the tavern. So the patio would be within this area here. They would excavate a portion of this and put the 5-foot tall retaining wall there. Just looking at the back of the tavern. This is along 24th Street. You can see, apologize, it's kind of dark, the tavern, and then the multifamily that is at the top of the hill that would be looking down kind of over the fence and into the patio area. Here's another view from the north, so you can see the multifamily residential use from the tavern here. The patio would be on the north side of the building there. So another similar view. And then this is looking straight east from 24th Street.
Bert, you didn't blow the city's photography budget, did you?
It is expensive to print color photos. The patio would be within this 20-foot area right here. Again, it'd be dug out a little bit. And this is the sidewalk here that currently ends that they would propose to extend to the north. The only comment card we got back was from the neighborhood association, and it was in opposition. Staff doesn't believe that the proposed location of a patio here satisfies the criteria necessary for such. We feel that given the proximity of the residential use to the north, we feel the patio would have in all likelihood, it would have some side effects on those residences. The sound would kind of travel up the hill and impact those neighbors. They are proposing to have only one little outdoor speaker on the patio, so they're not wanting to have loud music or live bands, but we do still believe that the sound could be a nuisance to the surrounding property. So we have recommended denial of the conditional use permit. So, any questions?
Go ahead.
If we allowed this patio, would they have to take down the front patio?
I believe they would want to keep both. You could make that a condition, but
Have we ever done that?
can't think of a case we have.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thanks, Bert. Applicant or representative of the applicant?
Good afternoon. Julie White, 801 55th Street, West Des Moines, Iowa. I'll start out with, sorry. Where do I put? That's what our building looked like a few years before we took it over. It's almost been 2 years. And after seeing you guys last, I believe, March, and being able to have it now look like that, with the front patio and the signage, this is just basically showing you that we don't do things lightly. We don't just slap it together, or we actually want things to look nice in our neighborhood. Beautification is important to us. Our business, of course, is important to us. So we don't take it lightly that we're just gonna go back there and slap some stuff together and make it loud. And with any well-thought-out plan, of course, you think of your neighbors. So what we are proposing to do, please forgive my drawing. What we're proposing to do is add a small 20 by 60 patio with the pergola and a retaining wall. And the fence, we could have built just a fence right behind that retaining wall, but we would like to enclose the whole property with an 8-foot fence, and then on the back, by city code, we only can put a 6-foot fence. And it's 25 feet setback, which is city codes. And then also another city code is the beautification. We have to have, I believe, 2 trees, 2 evergreens per square footage. Well, we're not just sticking to that. We want to put a whole line of evergreens, trees back here to protect those neighbors. We're also setting back about 10 feet with our fence. So you have a 10 feet setback, a 6-foot fence, a row of trees and evergreens, plus you have the 68 by 74 square feet, which I'm not quick on math, close to 5,000 square feet of green space in here, and a retaining wall with more bushes right here against the retaining wall, and both side fences. So I believe that I've thought out the plan of the sound barrier and not creating undue noise for our neighbors in back of us. I've also spoke to most of the neighbors back there because they're just out and around. Some are our customers, and I haven't received any opposition from them. The opposition comes from the only one person I know of in the neighborhood association. I don't know if she can speak for the whole neighborhood association because I've spoke to several myself from the neighborhood association. In fact, they are the ones that sent me the emails that she was sending around to people, and they were for it. And nobody came to me personally after sending 2 emails out to the whole neighborhood association asking them, please email me, please call me, please come and see me if you have any questions, any opposition on this. Not one person contacted me for that. So, and I had a couple of people that are our customers saying, they want it. The whole reason for this is this small patio in front. It is 60 feet by 6 feet. People like to smoke. People like to be outside, especially in the bar business. When you drink, you smoke, if you're a smoker. there's a lot of people that are out here. We can have not so many people inside and they all want to be outside. Well, obviously just by this little space, I'm not containing the people out there. And I would like to offer an opportunity to go in back and have more of a sit-down, nice area than just the standing area that sometimes can overflow into this parking area. So I'm looking for help for my patrons to be in a more controlled, contained area.
Okay. Questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
How would you, are you keeping the front area?
Yes.
How are you going to police both areas?
Security. I have a staff.
Are you
of,
adding more security?
Yes, yes. Right now, I currently have a staff of 4, and we also have well, he's not, I was going to say an off-duty officer, because that's what everybody thinks he is, but it's more of a security. He's an armed guard. And then I have 4 security staff. So I'll be hiring 2 more security staff and have the majority in the back, and then probably 2 or 3 out in front to still control the parking area.
Julie, this is going to be an expansion, right?
Yes.
Is there any additional parking that you're going to bring in? I think I remember when you were coming in for the sound permit. Remember that earlier this year? And some of the neighborhood people were talking about too many cars on the street. And this is going to be an expansion of that. How are you going to address that?
We have currently an agreement with the car wash next door for parking in their area.
Oh, okay.
They still do park up the street, but this actually is, it's very hard to explain from my point of view to get it to you guys to understand. This is actually going to help that because there's so many people that are in the front of the building that want to be outside, and then you have the people that want to pull in and park in their car and not really come in, but sit in their car and kind of watch what's going on out there. If I put the people that are in the front of the building in the back of the building with fencing and where you can't see really what's going on and being a part of what's going on out front, it's going to get a lot of those people to go someplace else.
And also, do you have any of those email
I do.
You mind if we see those too?
Absolutely. I have the 2 emails that I sent out, and then I didn't print off the one that somebody else sent me that she sent around, but.
Okay.
To follow up on the chairman's question, if you're having those issues in the front, why do you want to keep the front patio?
It's not really created any kind of problems. It's not an issue. I don't want it to become an issue. And the front patio, people want to be outside. If I took those railings down, it's not going to make any difference. People are still going to go outside. That's why I asked for the patio in the first place 16 months ago, to contain them. Because they're going to go outside regardless. And being a bar owner, by what the city states, I have to be in control over the people that are in my parking lot, regardless if they are in my building or have came in and received a drink. I'm still in control of my parking lot. And I'm asking for help to control that more by putting it more into a secured environment that I am in control over.
Mel?
Julie, with what you're proposing with your sketch there, is the new kind of patio service area, is it going to be about as wide as the current building?
Yes.
Okay, so your current building's about 60 foot wide, this is going to be 60 foot.
Exactly, and go 20 foot, or 20
Right.
feet back.
Which is how you get to your
And then 5
1,200.
feet back from that, a retaining wall.
Okay. And your front area now where your kind of patio is, that's just a smoking patio,
Right.
right? You don't have waitresses or
No.
bartenders serve people out there.
No.
However, what you'd want to do is serve people in the back patio, right?
Not necessarily, because it would be more just, they would go out there with their drink and be in more of a comfortable sit down.
Okay.
As you can see, there's not many places to sit down. They're all kind of standing,
Okay.
milling around. I want it more of
Okay.
a sit down.
Because that's very important for me. If that was a serving area back there, 20 by 60 is still pretty good size. 1,200 square feet, that's like the footprint of a, ranch house. That's a pretty large area. If you're going to be serving people there, I could understand a size need, but if it's just kind of a place to go smoke and hang out, you walk out with your own drink, do you feel it needs to be that large? Because I have a concern that the larger it is, then the more congregation you get out there. And I realize you're trying to take some pressure off where they're packed here in the front.
I believe it does need to be that large just because I can see and it's really Fridays and Saturday nights is when you really get the amount of people.
Yep. Okay.
And I feel that it needs to be that large so I can contain them in that area.
Okay.
Because I really want to see them from the front to go to the back.
Okay.
And a little bit more space where you can, and I can show you what I propose to do is put that type of furniture.
Okay.
So it's more of like a nice
chill out.
where you're not standing up and talking loud. It's more a chilled environment. You're with your little group of people. And
do you have any plans to have any music or?
I would like just one speaker that is from the jukebox inside, and it can just control that speaker, and I would keep it on a very low volume. The reason being, it's almost if you have a little bit of music out there, people will lower their voices to that music. If you don't have music on there, then their voices tend to rise, and I think it would create even more of a quieter environment if you provided a little bit of music.
So you're giving it some ambiance, basically.
Basically, yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anybody else here to speak in support? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Got two? Go ahead and line up. Go right ahead.
My name is Laura Reddig. I live at 2535 24th Street. I am also wearing two hats today. I am not only a resident up the street from the bar on 24th Street, I am also the president of the neighborhood association. I am the woman that Julie has been referring to that has been forwarding the emails that she has sent to our residents. Julie is under the impression that we're in the Prospect Park neighborhood, but we are not. So I've been making sure that all of the residents in the association are aware of the proposed changes. I did canvass several of the neighbors that live on 24th Street and on Holcomb, which is the first side street north of the bar, and no one is in agreement with this change due to the noise level and the impact that it is going to have on the parking and the congestion in the street. There is very little parking on 24th Street, and currently people park almost to the stop sign, so it's very dangerous. There's only enough room if you pull into the street on a busy night. There's only room for one car to pass because of all the parked cars on the side. With the if the patio is approved, obviously there's going to be an increase in business, which means increase in parking and congestion on the street. And I have heard from several of the residents that they no longer go down 24th Street because of it. They take other side streets to reach their homes at nights when the bar is busy. I am very concerned about the noise level for the apartments that are directly north of that building. As it was mentioned, the topography is such that the apartments sit higher than the bar does, and the noise travels. I'm aware of that firsthand. Freedom for Youth Ministries on Hickman oftentimes will have outdoor activities in the early evenings, and in the summer when my windows are open and the air conditioning is not on, I hear everything that goes on at Freedom for Youth. I have no problem with that because their activities end by 7 or 8 o'clock at night. That is not going to be the case with the bar. I will hear that noise at 12 or 1 or 2 in the morning, but the people in the apartment buildings, which are families with a lot of young children, will receive the direct impact. So I am asking that you not approve this request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Clough. I live at 2315 Holcomb.
Could you spell your last name? I didn't quite get your last name.
Clough, C as in Charlie, L as in Larry, U as in Uncle, F as in Frank, F as in
Very good, thank you.
I actually live.
If you can show us on the map.
Yes, actually I am. I actually live right back here behind the old Quincy place. And I can hear Drake when they're playing. I can hear the loudspeaker Drake carries to my neighborhood. And a speaker of any type is going to carry up the hill and into my backyard or my front yard or anything else like that. The other consideration is I work nights. I see the bar's impact firsthand. I don't know about staff, but you guys probably aren't there at 10 or 11 o'clock at night on a weekend. And I do avoid trying to get in and out of there on 24th if I possibly can. And there are times where I have people that I have seen walk out of the bar, get into their cars, pull out of the parking space that they have been using along the road next to here on 24th, which used to be an old skating rink and is now Bike World, and park in the middle of the road, block the correct lane of traffic, which I am in, headed up the hill. They're headed downhill. I have right of way, and they're blocking that right of way. And that happens a lot. Now, the other situation is that the appellant mentioned that they are using the Advantage Car Wash systems parking lot. I don't know if the site plan for the car wash approves for that conditional use of a parking lot, or if it is a temporary use. I also have questions about how it's policed, because the car wash is not technically a part of the business. How does anything that happens on the parking lot because of the patrons of the bar get policed? How does and I'm sorry I wasn't able to get the images printed before I came because I wasn't sure how soon this was going to come up. But how does the bar's patrons who park in a no trespassing area at Bike World get policed? Like I said, I work nights. I came home several weeks ago at 11 o'clock at night. There are patrons parked completely behind Bike World, blatantly in front of the no trespassing sign, and also and clear across the frontage of Bike World, right on Hickman. How is the bar policing that, and how it's Bike World that is going to be held responsible should anything happen on their property for the bar's patrons? There's a greater parking problem than the bar ownership and land ownership of the bar lets on. In addition, are those two pieces, if the zoning variance is granted, and I know that this has happened in the past for zoning variances. It actually happened for Quincy Place, where the property zoning was matched. The property was then combined so that it was one property, so that all applicable laws were met. The question is that also something that the staff is considering? So that all applicable laws for both pieces are unified so that enforcement can properly take place. I don't support this whatsoever on multiple levels. I also have serious concerns and questions whether or not the people in the apartments, the renters, were notified in the proper languages. I know that there's quite a few of them that only speak Spanish. I know that there are requirements for notifications and languages. I don't know if that was done. They're hardworking. They go to work.
One more minute.
Okay. And they come home. And their children play in the front of that apartment building, even when the bar is open. And that's not necessarily a good influence upon those children. In addition, when I went back by the next morning at 6:30 a.m., Bike World's back parking lot where it says no trespassing was empty. Where did the cars go if they were not from the bar? Again, I am opposed to this. I have other additional reasons, but due to time, I'll close. Thank you.
Just have a couple questions, especially in view of the blocking of the lanes when you're driving home. Have you ever instigated a call to the police?
By the time a police officer would get there with their response time, the cars would have moved.
Okay. And have you talked to the Bike World people about
enforcement? There's been
just let them know what's going on.
There's been multiple communications to the Bike World people and the owner, and no action has been taken.
No action by the owner.
No action by the owner of Bike World, even though it's posted as no trespassing.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Before I let you back up, Julie, I think Sue Ann has something to add.
Chair, members of the board, Sue Ann Donovan, Zoning Enforcement Officer. We have some experience on this board with how sound travels. We had a bar that created a lot of problems for neighbors because sound travels up. It sort of goes where it wants to. I would have a serious problem with, especially with the neighbors' complaints about the impact that this bar is already having on the neighborhood, expanding that use and allowing people to be outside. There's already sounds like there's parking problems. This will expand the seating area and create more noise disturbance for the neighborhood. So I'd argue against the conditional use permit to expand to another outside area.
Sue Ann, I have a question, just one. On the pictures that Eric showed, the dumpster is not enclosed. Doesn't the dumpster have to be enclosed?
Yes, it should be enclosed. We'll have to go look at that.
Julie will fix it. She'll take care of
We
it.
could see pictures of it anyway. I just,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll have to look at that. It should be enclosed, yes.
Okay.
Wow. There we go.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sue Ann. Okay, Julie, you got 3 minutes.
Dumpster will be enclosed, it's on our site plan. Number one, being good neighbors. Please come talk to me. Any problems that you have, any other neighbors, I have no problem with it. We have in turn went and talked to Craig, who is our next business over the car wash. We have came up with an agreement with him, and if he owns the property and he's okay with it, then you know, that's what it is. Bike World, we went and talked to the owner ourselves regarding issues with the parking and everything, and we've come to an agreement with him as well. We have security. Our security then, after we're closed, walks the whole premise and these 2 other businesses to make sure that all garbage is picked up. It happens every single night. They walk those premises and clean all of that. We have the armed guard. He says that he hears music from Drake. Well, I mean, Drake's a long ways off, I understand, but no music really. I don't know how many neighbors have not came to me and complained about the music. There has not been any police calls regarding music, those type of things. But if anybody comes to me, I welcome it, because I want to curb a problem before it starts, basically. Parking issues. I am where I am with parking. I'm over for my site plan on parking for even this expansion. I still have enough parking, but I understand, a site plan is different from really reality. So I've taken the steps to go to the two businesses on the side of me to work things out. They also are parking on the street, but if you understood my business, there is a lot of people that come and just want to they don't even want to come in. They just want to come and park near the place to see what's going on. I'm trying to get rid of that. I am trying to help this problem, because I don't want the people just coming and parking. We're not benefiting from them. We have to police them. The neighbors are concerned by them. That's the reason that I'm trying to do this, so I can have more of a contained, secured environment that the people that are sitting in their cars can't see what's going on. So they won't want to sit there. With them out front, with people out front, you're still kind of a part of what's going on. I know it's hard to explain, but if you understood the nature of the bar business, that is just what it is.
One other question, Julie. The parking, I assume, goes all the way right up to the street on Hickman, right?
I'm sorry, the what?
Parking on 24th?
Yes.
Goes all the way to Hickman?
Yes.
Okay.
In our parking lot? Is that what you mean?
No, on the street.
Oh, on the street, yes, it does.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, there's a stop sign right there, so.
Is it on one side of the street or both sides?
It's on one side.
Just one side.
Yeah.
East side of the street, I assume.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question for staff. Bert, I don't know where this is going. It's just the thought that came through. You've heard the neighborhood people talk about the parking congestion on that street on 24th. Can traffic and transportation put no parking?
It would have to be pretty much all or nothing. It'd have to be, traffic and transportation with council's approval could put no parking signs, but
I'd say.
I can't say offhand whether these apartment owners would want that, because their tenants might
Be parking
use
out
the
there.
parking as well, so.
Well, I'm just trying to ease their concerns any way I can. I don't know where we could,
Is there a sufficient parking lot now for the tenants in the apartments? Or at least one that we can see there?
Meets the requirement.
Yeah, there's not an abundance.
I think, didn't we hear that case about 2 years ago?
When we were at the issue up the road there a little
Yeah.
further with
We're
the
gonna build another building.
unit up,
Actually ask for relief on.
Yeah.
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 That's expired, I believe.
Okay.
Sounds like we exasperated the problem.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Thanks, Bert. Close the public portion, go to board decision.
I think Julie has been a really good bar owner. I mean, I think she runs a good business. She's been very genuine with us, but I just can't get past the sound. I just don't think that it's appropriate for us to have that big of a deck in the back. And, I hate to say no, but I don't think it's good for the neighborhood for it to be there. I know that there's been a lot of concern when you first open the bar, because we've got kids coming through there, and we just have a lot of people in a small space here. So I'm sorry, but I just can't support it. I just have to think of the neighborhood and what's best for the children. And I believe I think she's doing a great business. It sounds like she's packing them in, so business must be good, but I'm fearful to think about if we expand it. I mean, it still goes back to our legislature. We all know why we want patios, and that's to smoke. And that's out of our hands.
Another well-said statement, Linda. I want to give Julie credit for your tenacity, too. I do think you're trying to work hard on this. But every time I look at the property and even the nice things you've done with it, This was a convenience store. It was set up as a convenience store. That's how it was built. That's how the site was laid out. And with a convenience store, you got 12 to 25 people that might be on the property at any one time. The property wasn't set up, built, or designed to, have people parking on the street and all over to get in there. And I'm afraid while trying to help the issue you already have, it may just increase what you've got even more for people coming and enjoying the place. And voices carry. Even if you don't have sound on the patio or it's low, if you had a church lady bazaar meeting back there, that would probably be loud enough to carry up the hill. I'd like to find a way to continue to help you there, but I'm kind of on Linda's page here too.
And it's not that I object to it, but you don't know what we went through with another bar on the south side.
Yes,
And we
yes.
have learned, I mean, Sue Ann did test after test after test, and sound travels up.
Yeah, and I think these apartments on that south facade are even closer to this than the one we had down on McKinley.
Yeah. Kind of identified that bar in a hurry, didn't you?
McKinley's a long street.
And unfortunately, I'm in the same boat. I believe you've got a great business going there. But
McKinley Plaza.
sometimes you try to put 10 gallons of water in a 5-gallon boot. And I think the noise level is the issue here. I think we can get around a lot of things, but noise is pollution, especially if I'm trying to get to bed at 10 o'clock at night. I just can't, along with Linda and Mel, it's one of the toughest things to say to somebody who's doing a great job. There might be some other areas that you can reapproach this and get it back in front of us, and I'd like to see you do that. But in order to do that, you're going to have the blessings of the people that perceive it as being a noise nuisance. And we don't want to have that happen. I would not like to have it happen. So I think I'm kind of in the same boat.
May I say something?
Probably not. I mean, if we directed you to come up, I would, but. Any other comments? All right, I'll take a motion.
I would move staff recommendations.
I second.
Been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Motion carries 5-0. Like to see it come back, Julie, something better.
Maybe a little smaller.
Maybe a coffee with the neighborhood group.
Would smaller make a difference?
Well, it would allow you to, at least, you can come back next month and anytime you change it substantially, if it was smaller, you can bring it right back in front of us.
She'd have to pay another fee to reapply, but it'd be a different application.
Yeah, but you've got some concerned neighbors here, and believe me, we all listen to what the neighbors say. We want to make.
No, I understand that, but as an owner, I have to also worry about the people that are, like I said, I'm in control over the people in my parking lot. And I need more control, and I'm not getting it. So that's kind of where I'm.
I understand. All right, everybody have a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it took me 6.5 hours to read them.
Entertain a motion for the minutes.
I move approval.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Motion carries with 4-0 with 1 abstention, because I wasn't here. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Can we ask city, can we maybe?